Samay, Sama, Sambandh. Just some of these similar words that we saw between Swedish and Hindi as we dig deeper and find stronger roots between Sweden and India. Hey, namaste and good afternoon. Your Excellency Ambassador Anurag Bhushan, Political Secretary Rakesh Tiwari, and our State Secretary Daniel Westlin. Welcome. A big welcome to our distinguished guests and friends. And we are very, very happy to have you here at Engaging India at Almedalen 2025, which is the 6th edition. With me is Professor Emeritus Uwe Ronstrom from Uppsala University. Uwe's large body of work, over 100 publications, has significantly contributed to the intersections of our understanding of culture, society, sustainability, climate, and its intersections. He's also, interestingly, been knighted Riksspelman, which is the highest honor in Swedish music. And also joining us is Dr. Swaminathan Ramanathan, another co-founder of Engaging India at Almedalen, who bridges the academic and policy research with business strategy. So he delves both in the academic world and the corporate and policy world. And he teaches with Uppsala University and is director with Deloitte, giving strategy to corporates on sustainability, impact measurement, climate. So together, we started Engaging India at Almedalen back in 2019 with the thought to have a platform where we can have open dialogue between the corporate world, between researchers, academia, policymakers, students, startups, and really make it an enriching forum where conversations can go beyond this stage. And that's sort of my take on why we started, but over to you, Uwe, and then Swami, a minute on why did you start this forum?
Thank you, Rupali. Should I start? Thank you, Rupali. So it might sound like a bit of a cliche, but a lot can happen over a Swedish fika. Uwe and I, Uwe's wife Annalie calls me a lilla bror, as in both Uwe and I are like brothers. Of course, he looks like my father, but that's a different issue. So we started having a Swedish fika, and I used to have these freewheeling conversations with Uwe, and the first thing we started doing was to compare notes in terms of culture, saying that, oh, what's happening in the Swedish culture, what's in the Indian culture, and then we decided that, hey, you know what, both Swedish culture and Indian culture have so many similarities. And it started off with one simple similarity, saying that both in Sweden and in India, you don't enter anyone's house without removing your shoes outside. And if one can believe, we've reached here. It started off by saying, hey, you know what, we remove our shoes outside and then we go home. And today we are here at Engaging India at Almedalen. That's how we've sort of collaborated. So, Uwe.
Yes, and also what's going on out here is an idea of creating a meeting place in an island which is considered was considered a safe haven for these kind of meetings, which are now very problematic in many parts of the world because of security issues. But mainly people thought that it could come here and talk about important things in a safe environment. Islands are always supposed to be safer. And we thought we'd use that to create also a forum, a platform, a forum for talk and for meetings and encounters using Almedalen, but to create also bridges between disciplines and also between the academia, of course, and the business world, which is, I think, incredibly important. So we are all happy that you are here. And for now the 6th year, and it has been, up to now, quite successful, I think.
And we hope to continue that journey, of course. Uwe, the theme this year we have is Sambandh for climate, sustainability, AI, and next-gen innovation. So I'm handing over the floor to you to make the opening remarks, and after which we will call our Honorable Ambassador.
So thank you. Well, distinguished guests in place and online, since we are also streaming and online, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of India to Sweden, the State Secretary to the Swedish Minister for Climate and Environment, and dear panelists, dear guest participants, I'm proud to be able to open and welcome you all to this 6th edition. It's about rejuvenating the planet. How can Sweden and India collaborate for a sustainable future? A very big issue indeed. But as in previous years, the overarching focus of our seminars is sustainability. And this year, as we heard, we turn our attention to the role of artificial intelligence in sustainable development. The central question that we ask today is, can IE and next generation innovation accelerate shared sustainability goals? But let me start with a reference to contemporary or almost contemporary popular culture. Many of you, if not most, might recognize this conversation. I now have to speak in a deeper voice. We have only bits and pieces of information, but what we know for certain is at some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI. The other one, AI? You mean artificial intelligence? I suppose you recognize it. Yes, it's Morpheus, speaking to Neo. It's from, and to all of us in the cinemas and on television sets all over the world. He's introducing what the Matrix is. The Matrix, a world wholly created and controlled by artificial intelligence. That was then, way back in 1999, 26 years ago, a time when AI was still needed to be spelled out and explained. Time flies, as the saying goes, but that feels now as an understatement. For today, AI is everywhere in 26 years. Since 1999, the development of and use of AI has advanced at breathtaking speed, and yet we are, as we have heard today already, are still in the very beginning, and no one will know where it will take us. But what hasn't moved forward at such a breathtaking speed, however, is sustainable development. We already know a lot about what needs to be done and what must be done. And yes, things are happening around the world, but not enough, and sadly not fast enough to reach the sustainability goals already agreed upon by the international community. In the academic world, many has observed a widening information deficit, a term used to describe the widening gap between knowledge and action. A gap that emerges when political leaders, business actors, or the public either deny or fail to grasp and act upon what research tells us about the extent of the human impact on climate and the environment. Many theories have been proposed to explain why our accumulated knowledge is so hard to absorb and translate into action. But perhaps the simplest explanation is the most accurate. Sustainability is simply unknown. It's uncharted territory. We don't know actually what it is, do we? Sustainability is an abstraction projected into an unspecified future. And like all such future abstractions, it suffers from lack of empirical concreteness. To strive for something we don't know, we don't yet have, this is one kind of challenge. To strive for something that we even don't know or understand fully, that's far more difficult. That's why we need visions. Bold, imaginative, and vivid pictures of what the world could be. And here I like to paraphrase a song by the possibly forgotten mamas and papas of the mid-60s. The song is like this. We ought to know by now, we ought to know by now, yes, that we must take us somewhere where we never been before, and worn out phrases and long engages won't get us where we wanna go. No, this is the song. They're all right, but visions may take us there. Because once we give shape to the shapeless, and once we give form to the unknown, it becomes easier to see the path that will lead us where we need to go. Visions have agency. This we know for certain. Just think of what has come about over centuries from religious, political, technological, and not least literary visions, utopian visions. In a study of utopian ideas in the Western world, a colleague of mine, the Swedish historian of ideas, Ronny Ambjörnsson, observed how utopias tend to emerge and gain attraction, especially in periods when there is a widening gap between possibility and reality. That is, when society's structure blocks us from realizing the full potential of accumulated knowledge. And I suggest we are now in the midst precisely of such a time marked by an increasing disconnect between possibility and reality, when we cannot fully realize the knowledge we have accumulated about climate change, about pollution, resource scarcity, biodiversity loss, and more and more and more, because of the way our societies, our economies, and not least our systems of knowledge are organized. Here, I believe, is where AI, artificial intelligence, comes in. It might come in as a potential game changer for three main reasons. Just to keep it short, I stick to three. Firstly, sustainability is definitely what has become known in academia, at least, a wicked problem due to this huge scale, scope, and complexity. And as with other wicked problems, there's always a risk that the solutions we choose may create new problems, and sometimes even more severe problems than the ones we aim to solve. Wicked problems demand specific competences and very large amount of competences to handle problems of global scale and extreme complexity. Secondly, sustainability deals with systemic properties at a high level of abstraction, properties of how systems function or should function together. And when these systems work well, these properties are normalized and fade into the background. In fact, sustainability tends to become visible only in its absence. When systems break down due to disaster, to scarcity, or other crises, in that sense, we have plenty of knowledge and experience of what sustainability is not. But what it is continues to merely escape us. Sustainability then is a concept born out of scarcity and crisis. And like many other crisis-driven discourses, it comes with a Janus face. On the one side, we have the positive utopian visions of a better world, and on the other, the dystopian alarmist visions expecting ecological catastrophe just around the corner. And here, the Wachowski's version in The Matrix from '99 is not only cinematic history today, it serves as an always available backdrop to dystopic discourses on what AI can do with us and can have in the future for us all. So thirdly, the vast distance between the abstract systemic level and the everyday reality that we all inhabit helps to explain both the growing gap between possibility and reality and the likewise growing information deficit that many has pointed to as key obstacles to achieving sustainable futures. While everyday reality is tangible, familiar, something we can grasp and handle using both acquired knowledge and lived experience, the systemic level is abstract and distant. We can gain knowledge about it, but our everyday experiences doesn't help us much. And since what we aim to achieve lies in the future, we have no past experience to rely on. So here we are. We have enough visions to show us where we could go or should be heading. We know that more action is needed. We've gathered already quite a bit of knowledge about what needs to be done, and we have indeed done some things. So my conclusion here today is simply this. What we need now are tools capable of handling wicked problems, capable of processing vast amounts of knowledge from diverse domains, tools that can synthesize and model consequences at an abstract systemic level, based on the myriad of everyday actions humans undertake, and the many solutions we try out, and tools that can advise us about how to translate all this to the everyday realities of ordinary people around the world. And as far as I understand, up to now, AI can be, might be, or might become one such a tool, beyond the many more tangible applications now being developed from ChatGPT, facial recognition, power grid monitoring, autonomous drones, and whatnot. If that's the case, then we might still have a chance to reduce or even overcome the widening gap between possibility and reality, between knowledge and action, a chance to finally get where we should already have been going. And where is that? Well, a world that stays within the planetary boundaries given to us, a world where heroes like Morpheus and Neo is not needed, a world where they may remain safely where they belong on the silver screen as part of 20th century cinematic history. And from such a perspective, I would now like to go forward to today's seminars on innovation, IE, and sustainable development, and wish you all welcome. Thank you.
Finally, before I close, I like.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. This is the Ambassador's first talk, first public talk. So we are so honored that you are speaking at the platform of Engaging India at Almedalen, and we look forward to having you here every year. Thank you again. Well, I now welcome the State Secretary, Ministry of Climate and Enterprise, Sweden, Daniel Westlund, for his address. Daniel drives national strategy for climate action and sustainable enterprise and is well recognized for advancing Sweden's leadership in climate innovation. And it's such an honor to have you here, Daniel. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be welcomed back here to the annual, now we can call it an annual event, Engaging India at Almedalen. I'm happy to once again be amongst friends in the India-Sweden community, which I start feeling I really belong to after all the interactions we have been having over the past 3 years from my side. And also, obviously, it's very important for me that we have an opportunity to talk about Lead It, which is our flagship, the leadership group for industry transition. First of all, I would like to personally welcome our new friend to Sweden, the designated Indian ambassador, Anurag Bhushan. Warm welcome from all of us. From the government, but also from the wider Swedish community. And I think there is no better way to start your stay in your service in Sweden than the informality here in Gotland and at Almedalen. The government of Sweden, my minister and myself is very much looking forward to working with you. I can simply reiterate and confirm the fantastic strong bilateral cooperation between India and Sweden today, between our governments, between companies, and not the least between the citizens of our countries. While different in size, very much different in size, we also have a lot in common, including our commitment to the climate transition and our strong work together on sustainability and innovation. Today we have an extensive cooperation with India. We were, for example, fortunate to have the Indian Minister of Commerce and Trade, Honorable Mr. Goyal, with us earlier this month, as we heard. There was a delegation of scientists, industry and experts, as well as government officials traveling between our countries. They are traveling between our countries more than ever, and we are working closer than ever. And this is, I think, how we will solve common challenges. Meeting and talking to each other and exchanging ideas is the way forward. I myself visited India in January, and I came back inspired to further explore and develop our cooperation. Lead It, our joint global flagship effort to move the needle on industry decarbonization, together with other countries and key industry partners. The UN Secretary General asked India and Sweden to head this group in 2019. And in 2023, our both prime ministers announced the next step of Lead It and the strengthened in-depth cooperation on industry transition. The industrial transition is a whole of government affair. It's a multi-industry affair. It is transformational. We need to get it right for everybody, and we need to achieve it at pace. We need to get breakthrough technologies and innovation applied here in Visby, in New Delhi, and globally. As you're aware, heavy industry, including steel and cement, is responsible for a large share of the emissions in Sweden, India, and worldwide. I claim that there is no way of solving the climate crisis for those who do not understand energy, steel, cement, and fertilizer. Without understanding these sectors in depth, you cannot solve the problem. Remember, we used to call steel and cement hard to abate sectors. That was just a few years ago. But this is changing. There is new and emerging technology and new frameworks leading the way. We know how to do things, how to get rid of the emissions from these sectors, and this is shown not the least here in Gotland, in Slite, in the cement plant on the other side of the island, where the work is being done to transforming Slite towards zero carbon emission site. Actually, they will become net negative because they will be capturing carbon dioxide from biomass they burn in the process. When completed, this project will cut around 3% of the Swedish national emissions. So this is a big thing. And this is the case in every time you look at steel and cement, you see that it has a massive effect on emissions. Cost of implementing innovation in the industrial sector can be high, which is why we work together to achieve and why technology transfer makes sense for everybody. While the cost may be high, so are the rewards for getting it right. We mitigate emissions substantially, we progress our industry transformation, and we create jobs and opportunities in both our countries. There are good chances here for the front runners, where India and Sweden is taking the lead. In Sweden, competitiveness and the welfare of our citizens are founded on the twin pillars of sustainability and innovation. Our commitment to green industries is evident in ambitious partnerships and groundbreaking projects. The Swedish Parliament has adopted the climate target net zero emissions of greenhouse gases by 2045, and beyond this, we will have net negative emissions. Swedish industry account for around 1/3 of our national emissions. Ensuring the transition of the industrial sector is therefore crucial for us to reach our climate target. Extensive investments in the development and implementation of innovative technologies are necessary. But reaching the goal also means we need innovation, and we need to work together with others. Here today, we will talk not just about innovation, but also of the role of artificial intelligence, AI, to support the industry transition. How do we ensure this is a transformative force for positive change in the industries we used to call hard to abate? I'm not sure we fully know the future here, but to get it right is, of course, crucial. And it's hard to imagine a world now where AI won't be part of the solution and getting the emissions down. We know AI can optimize processes, making them more sustainable, analyze vast amounts of data to support informed, greener decisions, and accelerate the development of new materials and technologies. We hope these solutions can be replicated globally and for all. Maybe we should get to know some of the tools that the future may have for us. It's therefore timely to say that I have one last duty, and this is to introduce a new member of Lead It. The latest and the 27th corporate member of Lead It will be Ecometrics, a Swedish startup, today a small company, but one with a global focus on providing those AI solutions to industry in transition. We have Erik Enneker, the CEO here, I think. There you are. The CEO of Ecometrics. Most welcome to Lead It. And to all of you, thank you for letting me speak here today.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Please stay on stage. I would also like to do a handshake with the ambassador. If you can come back on stage, ambassador. And then we would also like to call, of course, the new member after your handshake. Yeah. Handshake. If we can do the handshake, we can move the maybe some of the tables so it's clear. Yeah, thank you.
Like this, okay. So, most welcome to Sweden,
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Ambassador.
Thank you very much.
Should we look at the camera as well?
Thank you. And Ambassador. Sorry.
Oh, really? Thank you. Thank you so much. So, thank you.
Can we also call Eric on stage, who is the
Oh.
new member of Lead It?
I can pass the gift
and-
on, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe the wine bottle.
After which,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
and please stay on stage.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Please stay on stage. I would also like to call all the speakers, please, who are here today. Let's do a group photo now when everyone's around, and we take that, and then we continue the session with Eric. Yeah. Oh, of
Eric
course,
in the
yeah.
Of course.
Speakers, please come on stage. All the speakers. Can we move these tables, please? Yeah. No, Ambassador Albo.
Det är inte jag som har skrivit talet, jag har knappt hunnit läsa det. Nej. Jag tyckte det var ganska stökigt.
Thank you.
Men så kan det vara. We have to make 2 lines, I think. Can we squeeze everybody in?
The Indians have to come forward.
We can step up a little in front. I think the last time we were actually, some of us were down here. Yeah, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
we need everybody to
Yeah.
come in front. I think.
Okay, some of us can take the knee, I think. That's okay. Oh, okay, come. Is it? Sorry, Viral, we can stand. Okay, cool. Let us know when we are done. A little more inside, close. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Are we done? Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. So I think we're done now. I'll call you back. Yeah. Yeah, I'll call you back. Oh, thanks. So that little pause for the photographs and some of the communication, of course, that you will be seeing on social media as well. So if you are taking pictures, remember to tag Engaging India at Almedalen. And now, before we move further, I would also like to we have a guest who's joining us, in fact, could not make it this time in person, but is one of the biggest supporters for us for Engaging India at Almedalen. He's been here for the last 2 years. In India, he is one of the leading industrialists who has been recognized for his efforts on sustainability and climate action, especially in agro businesses. So it is an honor that Mr. Mayank Singhal agreed to do a video talk with us, which I would like to play now on his behalf.
Distinguished speakers and members of the audience. It is a pleasure to be back at Almedalen, Engaging India, and delivering the keynote address. I wanted to be here in person today as Visby soaks in the unique atmosphere of the Almedalen week. I have been to Visby twice, unfortunately, had to give it a miss due to the pressing issues, but Visby really does have the timeline charm that lingers in the memory long after one has left. Missing this event does not feel a bit bittersweet, especially with summer on the horizon. That said, there's something special about being here, sharing the same space and feeling the collective energy and commitment in the room. Virtual platforms serve us well, but nothing quite replaces the value of human connection, in-person collaboration. In line with the purpose of Almedalen, I wanted to connect on sustainability, which is a way of life at PM. We gathered here before, and we are aligned to the common purpose of sustainability of our planet and its people. Rupali asked me why sustainability makes sense to PI. Well, for us, it's not a cost, it's an investment. Being a core positions us to thrive in a challenging world to meet the exceptions of modern stakeholders and create lasting value for both business and society. Purpose is transmitted with intent. The purpose is only as good as the quality of transmission. The fidelity of transmission determines the clarity of purpose. It is clear to me that the purpose of the core engine of sustainability, yet many times it seems to be a gap between the intent and the purpose. Today's gathering is but a small measure to how both the purpose and the intent can extraordinarily high. All of us are infused with a sense of urgency to do the right thing in the right way. So what is missing? My continued reflection has led me to one insight. The third P, which is purpose, needs to be the business logic. It means strategic shift in our mental model. Sustainability cannot be seen as a duty. On that, it's purely focused on compliance, disclosure, and reporting. It needs to be seen as an opportunity that can be leveraged by companies to turn its business models to provide true value to all its stakeholders. Intent and purpose must be one unit. Responsible business, in my view, is more than just a buzzword. It is high-fidelity transmission systems that merge intent and input into a purpose and then output. At PI, an old independent company from Independence, India, more than 78 years old today, during these years, PI has embedded the spirit of responsible business deeply in its DNA. Our long-term investments and emphasis going in the future with biologicals, new molecule discovery, science and technology at its core to focus on the building of the well-being of its communities. PI intends to translate this purpose of reimagining a healthier planet. My personal reflection also led me to answer another question, a last one for the day. What is that high-fidelity transmission system for a company? In my opinion, an organization culture that keeps sustainability in the forefront of every single decision it takes, from the grams in the labs to the commercial to the application to the use. Sustainability needs process systems, metrics and goals, targets and KPIs. Sustainability is quality. Sustainability is the quality management first, business management later. If processes are efficient and effective, we as a company constantly be able to recover and reuse resources, mindfully reduce the use of resources, and modify systems for efficiency, and make output align better for planetary boundaries, then we are responsible for the business. It also means that a company, we need to do the boring stuff, establishing goals, targets, and KPIs. That means an organization culture that also looks at everything across the value chain as an opportunity. That's my definition of responsible business, and that's the journey that PI preserved for the last several decades. It is still much more to do, and we will do it. But simple and boring stuff done every single day that leads to excellence in everything that we do. Here again, India and Sweden share the values that emphasize energy, enterprise, diversity, empathy, and the solution-first approach to complicated issues. India 2.0 able to design and implement population and planetary scale soft and hard infrastructure. Its emerging R&D ecosystem and Sweden's unique high-quality innovation and industry are natural partners for collaboration and cooperation. Today, India and Sweden solidly can be a force for the good of the planet. There are several business leaders here today at engaging in India at Almedalen. And I'll leave you, my fellow participants, with two questions. What that one concrete decision that we will need to make this year that will move the needle towards responsible business? Second, how do we share our learnings and best practices to upcoming and growing businesses to accelerate this transformation?
Two questions there that we heard from Mayank Singhal. Perhaps I might take a clue from those two questions and start our next discussion. We are moving on to our next panel discussion, which is sustainability, AI, and next-gen innovation how do we accelerate industry transition? And let me introduce our panelists for this afternoon. Per Andersson, he heads the Secretariat for the Leadership Group for Industry Transition, Lead IT, which is facilitating global collaboration on decarbonizing heavy industry. I'm also very honored to have with us Annika Ramsholt. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correct, Annika. Head of Sustainability at Vattenfall. She steers one of Europe's largest energy companies towards fossil-free operations. Very welcome. Also joining us today is Remy Kolesar. He is Director of International Cooperation at Vinnova. Vinnova is Sweden's innovation agency, and he is in charge of promoting cross-border partnerships. A warm welcome to you. And joining me on stage is David Höglund, Vice President of Minerals at LKAB. He leads the shift towards sustainable mining and resource management. A warm welcome, David, to you as well. And also, once again on stage, Erik Enneker, CEO of Ecometrics, the newest member of Lead IT, also leading efforts to harness data and digital tools for sustainability. So a very warm welcome. We are so excited that all of you are here at Engaging India at Almedalen. So let's begin. Let me start sort of with the first question on innovation. And I'm going to pick up of some of the key words from this panel. We're talking about industry transition. We're talking about sustainability, AI, as well as next-gen innovation and climate. Let's start with next-gen innovation, really. Annika, perhaps I will start with you. When you're talking, when you look at what is traditionally known as hard-to-abate industries, right? These are heavy industries. Making a shift and transitioning takes longer, takes a lot more work than, say, a young industry. How are you doing it in your organization? And are there any innovations or sort of disruptive tech that you are using which you can share? And what's your goal? Three questions.
There's a lot of questions in there. But for those that are not aware, so Vattenfall energy company. So we know that we will be fueling the entire transition now when we move away from fossil fuels, and we have been active for quite some time trying to see where can electricity play a role in really doing the transformation. And I've identified that the transport sector, but also the hard-to-abate industry sectors like the one for steel, cement, chemical, etc. Those are sectors where electricity will be very important, or at least either the green electrons or green hydrogen that you produce in there. So we have realized that since all these technologies are new, it's not enough that we just stand there as a supplier of this electricity, because what we also need to do when we build out a new electricity, we will need a lot of steel to the wind towers, to the towers for the grid. We will need a lot of concrete for the foundations, etc. So we've said that if we want this to be truly fossil-free, we need to be part of this ecosystem in building the new things. So we, for a long time, said, where can we use the knowledge and our things and work together with others? And that's why we've been engaging in the transport sector for a long time. Already back in 2008, we formed the partnership with Volvo Cars to produce the plug-in hybrid. So that was very early a partnership between two different branches or industries that didn't used to work together. We have done a similar thing now when we collaborate with SSAB and LKAB, the mining and steel company, to produce the fossil-free steel. Also there, bringing different industries together, where we all, if we only looked at one of us, we would not have been able to do the investments into this technology because it was too high risk. But if we merge technologies and knowledge from three different industries that had the joint vision then of using hydrogen in a smart way and could benefit later on, then we could do that. So I think it's more, to come back to some of your questions, I think one of the key things to drive innovation forward is to look at where are you and your company and your knowledge in a larger ecosystem, and how can we, together with those closest to us in this ecosystem, where can we drive change, and what are then the common denominators that we can work together on and try to drive forward. I think that's one thing. But then you also asked something on sort of what make things happen, and I think that you really move things forward. And one thing is what we talked about, the openness of daring to share, exactly what Ambassador talked about. We need to dare to share information, but also it's very much about also daring to put money on the table. What we've done, we take off-take agreements of fossil-free cement, fossil-free steel, even if it's not even existing already. We say we will commit in a number of years' time to buy a certain amount of this volume, even if we know it comes with quite a high premium. We're not even aware of the actual premium that will come, but we still commit to do that in order to drive the innovation, to give the sort of demand signal to the market to make them dare to do the investment and also get bankable contracts.
Well, that's a very important de-risking factor, really, which is needed to drive any acceleration. But you mentioned LKAB, and I will come to you, David. It's mining. It is a hard industry. There are some realities which you can't wish away. But when it comes to accelerating the transition, how are you all doing it at LKAB?
Well, several things, and I would say first, the mining and minerals industry has a unique and dual opportunity. That is, firstly and foremost, to accept the impact we have on environment and on emissions, and approach that how can we transform our industry. But secondly, being efficient and able to deliver these new minerals and metals that you talked about as well, to fuel the energy transformation that is needed for this every year. That is another opportunity we have. So we are sort of a starting point for the broad transformation, I would say. And every value chain, regardless if it's in services, has a dependency on metals and minerals. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. So that's a general sort of approach, and a dual opportunity is fantastic. So in addition to that, we are then developing the hybrid initiative, where we are looking at decarbonizing our customers' value chain, which is then using hydrogen to reduce the iron into pure iron, not iron oxide. So that takes away the need for a blast furnace with our customers, and they can instead use an electric arc furnace. Additionally, we're also taking out the extra material that we mine, but today deposit. So we mine iron ore as a primary, but then there is apatite in this, which is a mineral that contains phosphorus and also rare earth oxides. So now we have a project and are building a demonstration plant for 800 million in Luleå, where we're going to prove this and scale up for a full-scale industrial plant of extracting that from what is already mined, so resource efficiency. And a good example of how others can take after, I hope.
Very interesting. I have been to your, in fact, site at Kiruna once. And if anyone is in Kiruna, it's really worth going to. But coming to you, Eric, I mean, you've just become a member of Lead IT. Lead IT has really big players across different countries. There's big industry from India, there's big industry from Sweden, other countries as well. So what's your disruption? How can you enable the big guys really to make the transition, to accelerate it?
Well,
it's a big responsibility.
Yeah. No, I think being a young, agile, innovative company makes us be really quick and really adaptive in taking in new technologies and new opportunities. And I think also one of the things that really sort of gave us really eye-opening was sort of the collaboration that is possible between India and Sweden, which I think we can be a really big help in and help facilitate, because we're focusing on AI and there are sort of some very, very, very powerful and very interesting initiatives going on in sort of in the hard-to-abate sectors. That's not supposed to be called that anymore, but anyways. But one of the things that we can do with AI and data analytics is basically help the whole value chain make more optimized choices based on information, because it's so much information, it's so hard to get to. And that can be done pretty quickly. So some of these initiatives takes 4 or 5 years, but using AI and new technologies, you can optimize choice in 12 months' time. And there are some very good examples in Sweden going on and showing that you can basically halve the environmental impact when you're building just using existing technologies and processes. And I think AI has a very big role to play there. And in terms of what we can do, yeah, we can take innovation, technology, and work in Scandinavia and in Europe, but also in India. So I'm actually going to Mumbai tomorrow to meet an Indian company to talk about how we can work with agentish AI technology in looking at ready mix optimization of concrete. So.
Well, that's really good, because we, in fact, do have a gentleman from here who is from Mumbai, sitting there, climate leader with Deloitte South Asia, Viral Thakkar there. He'll be in the next panel. So perhaps you should connect, maybe meet up in Bombay. But now, coming to you, Per, and also let me bring in Remy. But Remy, first you. Vinnova is Sweden's innovation agency. How do you support the acceleration of the industry transition, not just within Sweden, but also really bringing in that ethos of co-innovation, collaboration, and providing the firepower that is needed for it to happen?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm trying to answer that. But what we're doing is we are driving innovation in order to support sustainability, growth, and competitiveness. So that's our main task, and we're doing that, of course, nationally. And one thing is to find or to help develop bold new ideas. And ecometrics is one of them, for instance. So that's a very perfect example. But we also need to make the collaboration cross-sector coupling, which is also a very good example in this application. But that's exactly what Annika said, that you need to solve or find innovation. You have to have the collaboration between different sectors. No one can alone drive forward the innovation. And that's what we're trying to do, is to mobilize actors and to work together cross-sectorial and cross-technology also. But the last is actually international collaboration, because Sweden is one of the leaders, I would say, in terms of innovation globally. But it doesn't mean that we all have all the solutions at home. What we're good at is actually collaboration. Collaboration, cross-sectorial, but also globally. And so the collaboration with India is a very good example on that. So if we can match Indian scales and Sweden's innovation capabilities, so we have the potential to make great things together.
I know that you do have a lot of announcements, call for innovation, call for joint announcements between India and Sweden.
Right.
So there is a lot that's happening in that space with Vinnova and with some of the science and technology department in India. But let me come to you, Per. Lead IT and then Lead IT, Lead It, if I can call it that, Lead It and Lead It 2.0. So the ambition has been to, it started with some of the steel sectors, then cement, and then you grew getting in more partners apart from India and Sweden, with sort of the ambition to reach net zero or to help them through the net zero, the journey towards net zero. But each of these nations and the companies that you have are so very different. So how do you kind of put it all together? How do you help them navigate the journey and navigate it yourself?
Thank you. The very good question, Rupali. How do we navigate ourselves? First of all, I would like to thank Engage India and Rupali for this is the third year we are here. I can't think of a better host, living in Gotland yourself, Last year, we announced the Indian Steel Authority, one of the biggest player in India. This year, we're one of the smallest player. We think that there's a role for everybody here. And maybe the composition of the panel itself is a testimony to that. So one of the biggest energy player in Europe, the mining sector, the state, Swedish state, and that kind of disruptor, that kind of element of I'm chasing something here that econometrics maybe will represent here. We work today in an in-depth partnership with India within LEADIT. LEADIT is 18 member states, and now with ERIC, 28 member companies. You are by the far the smallest. Other players are much bigger than you. Don't be afraid of them. They are nice. They're called Tata Steel, Tata Motors. They're also nice people. We believe in a global public-private partnership. There's on average, maybe every second March, delegation going in either way. On the Swedish side, there's 4 or 5 agencies, 2 or 3 ministries. On the India side, is similar, in a quite organized fashion, trying to drive this under the umbrella of and that I think, what we think is important, the joint political vision and commitment from the highest level. So with that, and a bit of what Annika was saying, daring to put money and ideas on the table, working together in partnership, driving both that incremental change by innovation, but also looking to that breakthrough things. And how can we together de-risk our investments here? I think that was very important. And we noticed that as more and more people meet, India come here, we are not so different from each other after all. We're quite similar in the end of the day. We just have to find each other. So that human meeting is super essential to us. I'll stop with the saying that, this week in Almedalen, I think Engage India is a superb voice also for the Indian community here, and also for people to discover India. That is maybe something that's lacking in Almedalen at the moment. There's a lot of talk in Almedalen this year, of course, on resilience, preparedness. I just end with we think also that to partner with other friends is also being more resilient. If you have a lot of friends in crisis, you can work it together. I'll stop there.
Well, I think you've summed it up really well, Per. I think that's very interesting. And in fact, we do have students who've come from Uppsala to be here. And then later on in the day, there are startups between Indian students and Swedish students who will be making a pitch here. So there is a lot of engagement going on. And what better place to be than really Almedalen to have these discussions. But I'm going to now pick up the other key word that we are seeing there, which is AI. Any of you not thinking of using AI or not using AI? Any hands? Yeah? Okay. So then I can ask the question, I think. So let's start with the companies first, really, and not the disruptor, but first the big companies. How are you bringing in AI, and it's a very broad phrase, really, AI, AGI, into the mix? Is it for resource optimization? Is it for... so how are you looking at it? Just to kind of get your perspectives on that. And what are the early sort of baby steps, when you're taking baby steps, what are the kind of early challenges that you all face? Perhaps you first, Annika.
Well, I mean, we apply AI in a lot of different applications, and it's not only for one purpose. One is definitely for resources, but it's also very much, for me as head of sustainability, a sustainability issue. We can, for instance, apply drones and AI to do inspections. We can have them move into contagious areas like within a nuclear power plant, or inspect sort of high voltage grids, etc., where you earlier needed to have people doing that and you needed to shut down your unit. So it's very much an efficiency bit, very much also much better for people, also better for nature in many ways. But then it is also, if we look at AI, do digital twins before we do any big maintenance work or build anything, that we have so many times now used that and realized when we want to move something in that this would not have worked, and that would have meant that we would have stopped the entire remantling or the work that we were doing. And now instead we can experience this with a digital twin, and then the downtime is so much shorter and also so time saving as well. So there's a lot of different purposes to apply it. But then it's also, I think the general AI will be very much also not only on the big things, but very much optimizing maintenance, and you have sensors that you put up in your operations, etc., that will do the small things. Not to mention the daily work. My life is so much easier with AI when you ask the Copilot to do things, to summarize things. So I mean, there's so many different areas that you can apply it. However, you ask for there's always a but and a challenge. I think one big challenge is you want it to solve everything, and it always is something that you usually need to get access to API from someone, and they charge dearly or won't even give it out. So that is one thing that is preventing things, and we are still in the area where daring to share data and knowledge is not something that everyone has realized that you can do. And there are also limitations to what you can share. So I think this is an area that we need to work much more. But that's why we have startups and others like you. You will fix that.
Question to him,
you will fix that for us, right?
So Eric, you want to pick it up from there?
That was a nice one.
At least I can try, right? No, I totally agree. We use it for everything, obviously. We're using AI for everything we do, apart from walking and eating, basically. But I would say, yeah, daring to share data is one of the issues. I think some of the new architectures coming out will solve some of those problems with the agents, where you can sort of bucket some information and just make it available for some solutions or for some users. But the other thing I think right now from an AI perspective is hallucination is a big issue, because the AI sort of is like a person, would like to give an answer even though it doesn't know the answer, and it will provide it to you. And we work with large amounts of data, and the problem is we don't know which one was hallucinated. So that's a big issue. That's something you really need to work on, and we do extensive work on that. So I say that is a problem, especially when you go into some things that are really sensitive, like building a building or something like that, because if it hallucinated on one little thing, that might have catastrophic consequences. So I think that is one of the things. But we've just seen the beginning now. So, but currently I usually say I think about it as I'm Santa Claus and I have all these Santa's little helpers, and those are sort of the AIs that can do a lot of work for you, but you still have to check the airplane, right? And see that it actually flies.
Right. David, how are you sort of integrating AI into mining?
In several ways. I mean, we used to say in the old days, perhaps the image of a miner is with a pickaxe and a hard hat. That's not how you mine in the future. It's ones and zeros. That is the reality of it. And we have been doing sort of from early on with automation, autonomy, autonomous trains, and whatever we have. And as we go deeper and we say we want to decrease our impacts, is about autonomous solutions, digitalized, and carbon dioxide free. Those go hand in hand, really. And also when we go deeper, it increases the risk, so we don't want to have people in the front line and so on. I would say also digital twins. We are looking at several big industrializations already on the planning stage to foresee how could you do preventative maintenance or big maintenance jobs without building it incorrectly from start. It becomes a much better process. And also when we're developing new processes now, like with a hydrometallurgical process, how to extract rare earths from the iron ore waste. Then we do modeling and scaling by that and significantly reducing the number of actual experiments done. So it helps everyone. And I too cheat with it every day at the office.
So how do you, for example, let's put that to Remy then. How do you kind of create an ecosystem where you're solving for, of course, industry transition, and an energy transition, but also bringing in AI into the mix? I believe, sort of Vinnova is looking at giving that boost to several young companies, cross-border sort of innovation. Tell us something about that.
Yeah, and that's once again the basis of innovation and the way we see it. It's about collaboration between different type of actors, not only different sectors but different types of actors. And what we're talking about here is integration of different type of technologies. AI is on everyone's mouth right now, but you have other critical technologies that are upcoming also that actually converge. If you take quantum computing, for instance, so the combination of AI and quantum computing can be quite powerful. So that's the kind of things we see in different technology going together. And so we can't develop that aside. We have to bring together all the technologies development, and all the actual actors, the public sectors, including, but of course the traditional industry, if we want to succeed and to bring forward the competitiveness of Sweden. So really, this ecosystem is the way we see and look at innovation. You can't only pick one size and then develop it from there.
Indeed, and I think to develop an ecosystem, policy is also very important. So I'll put the question to any of you all: how can, say, industry and say Lead IT and Vinnova, etc., enable the policy to move with the times? So often, it's a little sort of behind, especially when the internet sort of came in, when www, etc. So the policy was a little at the back, right? So how do we ensure that sort of policy is also moving along with this transition? Any of you can take that. Per, do you want to take it? Yeah.
I can start. So, not being an expert on AI, just consumer awareness here. So for us, it's tempting to just look at econometrics, for example, and say we want that pace, because in the transition to reduce the emissions, we need pace. We need the AI. But of course, there's an understanding that the regulatory body also has to move, and they can't move in the same pace. It needs a democratic scrutiny. It needs a consultative process. It needs to be safe. It needs to be safe for everybody. There's lots of issues on privacy and all the governance of it. Annika pointed to the sharing data.
Yeah.
That could be a crucial point. So maybe we, a little bit in tandem, find also a regulatory model for sharing in the best way when it comes to that crucial global green tech. Because if we have the solution and we don't use it, then something's also wrong. So I'll stop there.
But I think you raised a very important point Annika had raised about data sharing, and these are real and genuine concerns. There are issues of IP, there are issues of how much money has been gone into R&D, and then of course security issues. So how can kind of policy, any suggestions for policymakers on how some of these can be ironed out? Any of your thoughts? Maybe Eric, as a young company, and then we'll move this way.
Yeah, I think policy is definitely one. No, I think risk taking is. I know this is hard from a policy perspective, but I think sort of if we want to move the pace forward and increase the pace, I think a little bit more risk taking on the policy side as well. Yeah, probably some policies are not going to be perfect, but again, hopefully that will enable a lot of technology and a lot of innovation coming up. And I think that's just a risk that I think is worth it. So I think risk is taking a little bit more risk on the policy side. The other thing I think is also there's a lot of humans that need to adapt to this. And a lot of humans are not that adaptable and want to change, and I think we just have to be conscious of that. I met this guy working in construction, and he said, well, if this college kid comes up and tells me an AI had told me that you should change the way you've been working for 30 years because it will lower the climate impact, that guy will just look at him and say, boy, I have more hair on my hands than you have on your chest. Come back in 10 years. And I think that's sort of one of the things that we just have to realize, that is also a big challenge in transition.
Yeah. Well, that is true. And I mean, if you're just touching on AI, then there are other factors of, the energy. And that's something that Annika can also perhaps comment on. There is intensive energy use also, right?
Absolutely, but I think again there we can use the AI also to optimize the way that you're using energy and also ensure. I mean, we work together with data centers that you also use whatever excess heat that you get, that you can use that and you repurpose that. So I think it's again you need to look at your full ecosystem and see that you optimize it. But I would like to get back to this with policies because and build on what Eric said. I think what we need to have policymakers daring to do is not that we check everything before we put the policy in place and then we run with it, but also here dare to do more pilots and there are a number of collaborations where you have actors in an ecosystem and then you can have that as a sandbed and test. So what if we would do this and then see does it actually play out or not? So I think in order for us to be quick enough to be able to do the changes that we need to do, I think also when it comes to policy making, we need to dare to be a little bit different and also try to do pilots, which is something we're very used to do in the industry, but that's something.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I may continue on that point, is that that's exactly what we need to innovate in terms of developing policies. And one way is regulatory sandboxes where you, exactly as you say, in terms in other technology and industrial development, you need to test, pilot, and then you can scale up, and that's exactly what we have to do for policies. And so regulatory sandboxes, I think, is one of the solutions. We're actually trying to. We did actually a study for the government to propose that related to the EU legislation, and which is actually very linked to the specific area we're talking about here, and I think that is really one of the key aspect to make it forward. Right. But another thing is we've been talking a lot of partnership, but I think we need leadership in terms of strong commitment in where from the policymakers, from the political levels to secure the long-term transition. So if you only have all those other aspects, it's not enough. So you need really this commitment. Right. So this combination, I think, is very powerful.
Interesting. I'm picking up some words here in terms of course, a strong commitment from the political force, from the governments, as well as regulatory sandboxes, risk-taking. The ability to take risk as well. And David, why don't you add to that? I mean, what are your thoughts on how can policy really keep up, and what are your suggestions?
Oh, policy regulation in AI, not my expert area. And these guys seem brilliant, so I'll say yes to what they're saying.
All right, okay. We'll then move on to two quick questions. I know we have some 2 or 3 minutes left, but in terms of collaboration, and we're talking about India and Sweden. They are, of course, at sort of different trajectories in their transformation, and also they are markets for each other, right? So is India in any of your vision for having a collaboration? Of course, it's the main job of Per, so I will skip him, but the rest of you.
Yeah, I'm going there tomorrow, so definitely.
As of now, David?
Yes, we already have engagement with India, and it's a big potential market, so obviously, and a growing one as well.
Yeah, and we of course have been driving the joint partnership in innovation many years ago now, and so that's something we really looking forward to continue, and that's very important part of this collaboration we're talking about today.
Okay, Annika?
And for Vattenfall, we're not active in India or will expand beyond Europe, but for us it's more about sharing the knowledge, and anything that we do and test, we can do it in a smaller scale, maybe in Sweden, and then it can be exported. And we have a lot of discussions and dialogue with the Indian companies on more sharing of knowledge and experiences.
Interesting. And Per?
I can say also the opposite is true. If you go to the northern Sweden, you find a lot of Indian engineers, the CTO of the steel companies, you find Indian technical solutions. So the industry transition in Sweden is partly driven by India. It's both of them.
You're perfectly right. We have lots of Indians in Vattenfall, not the least within IT and general AI, etc.
All right. Well, Per, Annika, Remy, David, and Eric, thank you so much. This has been very interesting for me. I hope the audience enjoyed your perspectives as well. And welcome once again to Engaging India at Almedalen. We will take a short coffee break. 10 minutes. Please have some cookies and coffee, and then we will be back for the next fireside chat with Klaus Kunz, who's traveled all the way from Germany, and he's going to sort of share his insights on climate sustainability and regenerative, resilient agriculture and food production. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Hello, Shilpa. Can you hear me? Perfect. Yes, very well. So that's great. So can you put your video on so we can check the video signal? Please. Yeah. Yes, perfect. So I was meaning to ask you if you're supposed to run any slides or anything, or just talking. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Why do you? Just give me a second. I will check that. All right. Can you hear me now? Hello. Can you hear me, Shilpa? Yeah. So your camera feed is very bright. Okay. I don't know why, because it seems clear here. Okay. Let me check that.
You're very high.
Yeah. Is it too high? Okay. I'll bring it down just a notch. Is that better? Okay, there we go. So, your image is very bright. I don't know if we can maybe try to maybe, or we can, there's a setting in video settings you can adjust. If you go into the video settings, there should be a function. Let's see. Maybe it's over there. Okay, I need to bring the chat. There is echo. Okay, from my voice or from your voice? Okay, that's strange. Let's see. Okay. Okay. That's super strange. Let's see. Zoom. They are muted, the other ones. Oh, maybe now? There we go. There we go. Is that better? More clear? No? Yes? Slightly better, okay. So it's so strange because all the other mics are muted for you, but you still hear them. So I don't know why it's... Okay, okay. I will look into that. Give me a second. We can do it like this just for now. Wait. We go to... There we go. Is that better? Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. We will try to fix the video. There's a setting for the video where you can you go to video settings on the camera, and I think there should be some kind adjust my light. Yeah, I need to find it myself. No, I can't find it here. Well, maybe we can. What do you say, Daniel? Can we?
We have to live with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can live with it.
No, not really. I think it is. I'm just into details now.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is what
it's
it
totally
is.
fine.
Yeah.
Let's go with this so we don't mess up your settings in any way. So I will switch you. I will mute you for now and activate the sound from the room, and Hopefully you will hear them loud and clear. Do you want to have a chat with the Rupali or anything beforehand, or are you all good? Yeah, I can look, because then we can test the sound as well, so that would be awesome. I will fetch her. Okay, so stand by.
Headset mic is there. We may need that.
There's one more down there.
Yeah, that's
Check with Oscar because he is in charge of the sound. Yeah? De undrar om de får låna det headset till.
Vadå?
Eller jag vet inte varför, men de behöver låna ett headset till, sa de.
Okay, display stage. There we go, and we put the... Not now, sorry.
He'll be right with you.
Shilpa. You don't have the live stream on your web browser, right? From no? You only have the Zoom application running. Okay. Okay, I'll switch to Rupali now and Rupali, you can watch on the screen and say hello and see if you have good sound. Let's see.
Can you hear me, Rupali?
Try again.
For some reason.
You should now.
I can hear you clearly.
I hear her.
Shilpa, I can't hear you.
There we go.
I cannot hear Shilpa.
Yeah, try now.
Shilpa, say something. Yeah.
Hi, Rupali.
Yeah, okay. So I can hear you. I can hear you. Swami,
Great.
Swami, you need to come in with Klaus. You guys have to be on stage by now. Okay, let's get everyone inside. Can we have everyone inside, please? We're starting again. Everyone inside, please. Can we have everyone inside, please? We are starting again. Everyone inside, please. We are 2 minutes late. Yeah. Can we have everyone inside, please?
I think she's not on for like.
So what's first?
Alltså 16:05 så är det hon på Zoom.
Ja, 20 minuter.
Det är en fireside chat med
Ja, det är en paneldiskussion.
Klaus och Swami.
Okay, it's a panel
Det är
discussion.
två, ja. Klaus och Swami. Klaus and Swami. HS2, HS3. Så...
Jag hänger bara på.
Ja.
I just go with the flow here.
Okay. I need Oscar.
Okej.
Can I take the one more headset mic? HS7. I think the 8.
Why?
Because there are 8 members in the panel.
But what we counted yesterday, it was... Have they added one? Because one is on Zoom, you know.
Because Syria doesn't have a...
Shilpa is on Zoom. That's not 7. You don't need 7 for that.
Welcome back, everyone, to Engaging India at Almedalen. In this session, the next session, we're going to focus from Sambandh to scaling. We're going to focus on scaling climate action. And we'll begin with a fireside chat. For that, may I request on stage Klaus Kunz, Executive Leader and Senior Sustainability Advisor, who's traveled from Germany to be with us today. Klaus is the head of global development at PI Industries and also the founder of EPRUN, supporting sustainable businesses with the making a transformation.
Thank you.
I'm joined by my colleague, Swaminathan, who was introduced earlier. Swami, interesting intersection that you sort of dabble in, which is between academia, research, advising on policy, as well as corporate leadership. So we hope that you will bring in some of those questions in this fireside chat and later on in the panel as well. So over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Rupali, and a warm welcome, Klaus. And I must say that yesterday, last night, when we were at dinner, we ended up talking a lot. It was a freewheeling conversation, and we've only had freewheeling conversations till now. And we realized that we all have dabbled between both Klaus and I. We must have dabbled in 10 odd areas. And then he said, "Oh, you seem to be cut from the same cloth." Right? So a bit of policy, bit of research, bit of think tank work, a lot of corporate work. So that's who we are. And I hope to have a very freewheeling conversation with you, Klaus. So today is, it seems like a big topic, right? Climate resilient food system. So how do we create a climate resilient food system? So I want to start off with something very, very insightful that I realized that came to me. It's like going ahead and looking at climate change from the other way, right? So we tend to think of climate change as something which is gloom and doom, droughts, fires, wildfires, which cannot really. California wildfire was, for example, an illustrative example, right? And then I ended up going with a very close friend of mine, a former colleague, Perarne, to around 30 kilometers from here in Gotland. And then I saw wine grapes, Merlot grapes, blue grapes being grown in Gotland. Right? 10 years back, 15 years back, that would have been unheard of, unthinkable. So Gotland seems to be probably in the first steps of being a wine-producing region. And grapes is a Mediterranean crop, right? So what does climate resilience mean for you?
I mean, I would say, what you point out is very important because people tend to think everything in binary, in good and bad, in 1 and 0. And of course, every time there's a change, in the change there's something positive and there's something negative. And we had that conversation yesterday evening. The only impossible thing and the greatest innovation ever would be preservation, because it's actually not possible to preserve something. It's always evolving. So there's intrinsic evolution all the time. And maybe it's very important from time to time to remember ourselves that that's the fact and that things are changing. However, I'm a firm believer that we need to step up massively in our efforts, not to preserve, but to avoid massive damage, because as we said, preservation is probably not possible. And it's not only about climate, it's about biodiversity, it's all those factors, the planetary boundaries, where I think we need to make a lot more. So this is, it starts with everybody acknowledging, looking at himself, herself, acknowledging, like, where is my share?
Right.
Where can I make a contribution, and then joining the broader conversation?
Right. So that's the big question, Klaus. I think you've answered it quite well. I just want to stay with it for probably another 30 seconds or so, right? So from what I hear from you, and I'm interpreting you, please feel free to correct me. It's almost as if that the climate will do whatever it wants to do, right? The earth changes, it will change. It's probably been changing from its inception, right? So the resilience is more towards us. it's a self-reflective question. So what does, in the current scheme of things, how can we become more resilient? Does it mean that we need to change our thought, our
Yes.
ways of life? Please.
Yes. Yeah, changing the thought by, first of all, trying to anticipate what will come. I think we are not good in anticipating what will come because we're all trying to be tied and to tie ourselves back into what was. It's one of the reasons why, and I may say this, maybe a good moment to say that, why I wanted to join an Indian company. Because I felt the willingness to accept that the future is different from the past is very high. The appetite actually is even high for having a different future than the past. While the appetite in Europe for changing into a different future is very low. I'm from Germany, so I don't know about Sweden, but I would have that suspicion that it's maybe not so different from Germany, that we are afraid of the change, while in India I was sensing a much stronger appetite for change. And if you now want to anticipate what would be a better future, once again, I think it's very important that everybody starts to acknowledge that he or she sits into a bubble of assumptions, talks to other people in the same bubble where nobody's challenging those assumptions. And the only way to get yourself out of this bubble is have cross-functional, cross-cultural, cross-regional and cross-finance industry regulatory conversations and allow others to challenge your core assumptions.
Perfect. So now, it's like the big question, and I'm sort of narrowing it down. It'll get more and more tighter. So it's my intention is not to put you on a spot, but to ask all those hard questions.
I can say this. I worked for Bayer. I was on the spot. I'm used to that.
Okay, perfect. So that's great. So taking your thought process forward and trying to make it much more practical, right? I'm a coffee person. I need my coffee in the morning. I need my coffee in the afternoon. I need my coffee in the evening. I've just about finished a cup of coffee, right? And I do realize, and these are very good estimates, research-based estimates, that just a single cup of coffee is 140 liters of water, right? And I'm standing in a place where not a single bean of coffee grows. And it doesn't grow in Europe too. Grand Canaria doesn't get included.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet, right? So I'm now coming back to a food system. Now I'm able to drink coffee and afford it and probably take it for granted simply because of the fact that there's a food system that's allowing me to get a cup of coffee. But that's 140 liters of water, right? So how does one look at a food system? Is it a food system change that we need to look at?
The biggest challenge that having worked in the food system for 20 years, I have observed is that people are not able to describe trade-offs. It's impossible for people to talk in trade-offs. They like as I said in the beginning, binary, organic is good, conventional is bad. Local is good, international is bad, globalized is bad. So they talk they like to talk in those terms, but we need to acknowledge that nothing goes without a trade-off. Simple example, when people say, I have a biodiversity positive agriculture, this doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. In the moment you try to grow on one piece of land, one specific crop more than others, what agriculture typically does, you are reducing biodiversity by definition. And I think that honesty would be very important, that everybody is leaving that place to acknowledge that what I do has benefits and risks, and go out of this good and bad into a risk-benefit conversation. And then we are going to be able to describe the coffee problem from multiple aspects. And this is maybe where you want me to get there anyway. This is where AI can chime in, because we are not able to capture all the trade-offs. Intellectually, it's too complicated. How can the future, something, a machine help us to better capture trade-offs without bias? And I have severe hopes that AI can significantly help us to overcome all these biases that we have when we describe this is a good and this is a bad system, and go into much more an outcome-driven rather than an input-determined conversation. That's another very simple example when we talk about climate-resilient food systems. If people say it should be organic, I say why? Or conventional, I also say why, because these are just describing input parameters. Is it organic? It means like the input you use is coming from nature. While if it's conventional, you say the input you use is coming from a laboratory. What is actually the point? The point is more what is the outcome? How can we describe an outcome? How can we describe an outcome from different angles? Water is one of them. Social dimensions are others. I mean, we still want people to sell coffee and to trade coffee also. Trade is a very important element in the whole equitation, but it's only one element in the equitation. Nutrition, I mean, all those elements, how can we bring them in a way that we have a balanced decision at the end of the day and we can really describe acknowledging that the perfect solution doesn't exist. This is so far out of the corridor that we should not do this anymore.
Perfect. So sort of, I think you've covered a broad spectrum. So I'll, in my way, let me sort of try and focus on something, right? Food is critical and it's critical for survival. So we know food. We've always been eating food. So if you look at evolution, food has been a critical part of evolution. Lack of food, too much food, it sort of determines how the human evolution has taken place over a period of time. Different geographies, different groups. But in modern times, food is agriculture, and agriculture is a business model. Food doesn't seem to be farming. Is there a fundamental difference there? So do you see this as a business model problem, or do you see this as a practices problem?
And maybe I tie it back to climate resilient and how we can come to a climate resilient food system, and how we can put like one measure at the core which helps us to determine whether it's climate resilient or not, and then all the other answers on how should we design the food business model should be linked to that. I believe the most important measure whether in agriculture has an acceptable impact on the ecosystem or not is the soil quality. And people say, yeah, but then water and then biodiversity. I say, if the soil quality is good, all the other parameters are going to be better as well. You can really nail it down into the soil quality. And if you have a business model which is negative for biodiversity, if you have areas in the world, and there are enough of those areas where you only grow 1 or 2 crops all the time, soy and corn, I mean, for example, then this is really negative for the soil. This is soil degenerating and not regenerating. Consequently, it's bad. And then the whole business system needs to be adopted, but then also you as consumers need to accept that the meat in the supermarket will be more expensive, because it's not building a system to provide food. It's a system to provide cheap meat. How do we transition from a system where we all want to have our very cheap chicken in the supermarket to a system where we want to pay adequately for chicken and also enable farmers to have different cropping systems than soy and corn until the cows come home? I think that is one of the key questions which cannot be put on the shoulders of the farmer. As you say, nobody talks about the farmer and his business. Everybody talks about the price in the supermarket.
Correct. So let me stay with that clause, and probably it's something which has occurred to a lot of people, but maybe not really articulated, right? So the fact that you're talking about cheap chicken, cheap beef, cheap pork, whatever, cheap meat, right? And in some form or the other, the meat itself is the villain, not the cheap part of it, right? But meat is a good source of protein. A lot of communities eat meat. They eat chicken, right? So again, my question remains the same. Are we battling a business model, or are we battling a product? Say in this case, meat. Is it our convenience of just picking up something from the shelf? Is that what is determining our lack of cognitive change? We understand the data is there. So this is a room full of people who understand data. Yet we are questioning the meat and not the cheap part of it is the way I'm understanding it. It's a little bit of a controversial question, but
No,
you
it's
may,
not
you
a
may pick it up.
controversial question because I think both things come together. I mean, people have, on the one hand, traditional ways of nutrition. They have traditional ways of how they want to be fed. They have a traditional menu which has 5 times in a week meat on the plate, by the way, which is not traditional because, I mean, 50, 60 years ago, people did not have as much meat on their plate, also not in Europe. So it is more like we are used to it and maybe our parents were used to it. It's what we are used to combined with the convenience to have it. And I don't know how to break this cycle. I think it is possible to break the cycle. I think it's possible to come to different incentivation schemes for farmers because this is where, the farmer is treating the soil, no one else is treating the soil. How can farmers have a different incentivation scheme for different cycles of rotation, which include more crops, which will lead to better nutrition for all of us? In the end of the day, it's a plus for everybody.
Right.
For everybody. If we are able to change our preferences.
Yeah. And final question, Klaus, and then we can wrap up because I've been shown that 1 minute
I saw
card.
too.
So you mentioned soil health, and I think it's a very important point. So when we look at farming or agriculture, we look at input as land and water and equipment, but nobody says soil. So quite clearly from whatever experience that I've had, soil health is not measured and it's not a metric in any agricultural agro-processing company, right? It's not there at this point.
It's not there, but
Yeah.
it has to come.
It has to come. So how do you do that? How do you do that?
I mean, and that's a very important question because already when we started to measure carbon, which is only one component in soil, it's only one component. Minerals, all these other elements are part of a healthy soil. But already carbon, we were struggling because there was overpromise, carbon credits, like we can do all kinds of tons of sequestration. And it turned out after a couple of years or even couple of months that all those promises were not accurate. So I think, once again, it will take a moment where the industry world, the finance world, and the regulatory world come together and define in a reasonable way and not in a way like where in Europe, honestly speaking, with the CSRD, there were not enough experts on the table. It was regulatory people driven by the desire to impose these regulations. If the finance people are doing it, they don't understand agriculture either. If only the industry doing it, it's going only into their own pockets and advantages. They all need to come together and define what is the soil measurement system that we need. And it cannot be stable as well. It will evolve over time. But those parameters need to be defined. A nutritious soil will provide nutritious food and bring health to all people.
Thank you so much, Klaus. I know that we can continue this conversation for the entire day, but thank you so much for coming here and appreciate your inputs and thoughts.
Thank you so much, Klaus Kunz, once again, and thank you, Swami. Let's move on now. I will, of course, stay with the thread of a resilient food production system, resilience in agriculture. And we have another very special guest who's come down from India. Viral Thakkar, partner and climate leader of Deloitte. He's here in person. Welcome, Viral. He, in fact, leads Deloitte's sustainability and climate strategic growth offering practice for South Asia. He also brings in a multidisciplinary solutions for climate and sustainability initiatives. And I believe you also, he consults as well. That's a sort of prime job. So over to you. And so just sort of a short note here that this is the third time that Viral has come here presenting a very unique case study. So we really appreciate it, Viral, that you actually come here and tell us what's really going on in India with smallholder farmers, with pollution, with food, with a business model, and of course, agriculture and AI, I think, or at least technology. Over to you.
Thank you, Rupali. So looks like at least one person's being paying attention. Really, honestly, it's a pleasure, truly a pleasure to be here. I use this opportunity every year to almost come and present a report card of what we've done the previous cycle. So as Rupali said, it's my third visit to WISPy, an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much for having me here. So this is where I present my report card. So for those of you who haven't heard this story before, I'll do a quick recap, and I'm sorry it's a repeat for many of you, so please bear with me. So the broad problem statement is this. Every year in North India, across the states of Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Madhya Pradesh now, farmers, after the paddy harvest, essentially burn a vast majority of the agriculture residue, or what we call stubble. Now, you may wonder why does that happen? So the problem is this. For these farmers, thank you. For these farmers, sorry, it's a busy slide. I'll use, but I can narrate this without the slides. So for these farmers, and more than half of these farmers are what we call small and marginal farmers, which means that their land holdings are really, really small, which means that they cannot afford the equipment that you need to process that agri residue. And all of you will know that an acre of rice or paddy farm produces about 3 tons of agri residue, right? So 3 tons of this stubble must be processed. And they take 2 cycles. So to Klaus's point earlier, it's not very diversified. They produce paddy in fall and wheat in the spring season, which means that they have a 30-day window within which to basically take care of the farm. Because they, most of them cannot afford the equipment to process, which is typically balers and tractors and, hay rakes and so on. They believe that burning it is the most easiest option, which is true. But there's obviously a slight flaw in this story because controlled burning or pyrolysis might be slightly better because it creates biochar, but that's also debatable. Open burning definitely does not. In fact, it creates a lot of pollution in North India. So those of you who might be traveling to Delhi in fall will experience a lot of haze and smog. But the health impact is staggering, right? Cumulative health impact is roughly 15 million disability adjusted life years in the country, right? It's like saying 200,000 people are dying every year for something that's completely preventable, right? So that's really the biggest impact and the biggest motivation for looking at this. North India has about 80 to 90,000 distinct fire events, and roughly 13 million tons of this agri residue gets burnt, right? So that's really the scale and size of the problem. So that's the background. So what did we do? So we actually went to the state of Haryana to say, can we try something out? Can we bring technology and other interventions to try and see if we can help solve the problem? So they said, yes, why not? Go ahead. So we did a pilot in 6 villages. By the way, spent a lot of time talking to the farmers. What is it that you do and why do you burn, etc. Which is where we discovered some of these things. So the solution was, I think, relatively simple. We built a platform. Think Uber for farmers, right? So a platform that brings farmers together with people who have equipment. And the platform has about 5,000 distinct farmers who have their equipment listed on the platform. That's one part of the story. Second was to convince the farmers that why is it important for you to not burn and take advantage of the platform. And by the way, this agri residue or stubble is actually monetizable, right? So you can actually sell it. It sells for anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 rupees a ton, which is small but not bad, right? It's money for something that is absolutely a waste. So that's the second part of the story where we tried to go door to door, convince the farmers. The third part of the solution, we did prime the system with some equipment that we donated. But more importantly, we've been focusing on helping build downstream connections, which means connecting the farmers to downstream users of this agri residue, for things like compressed biogas or ethanol, etc., etc. So, broadly the impacts were in Haryana, starting with a pilot in 6 villages. That first year, we saw about 70% reduction in fires for those 70 villages. We scaled that in 2023 to 666 villages, which had a reduction of about 54% that year. And then last year, in 2024, we went to 441 villages. You might say, why is there a drop? Because the fires are fewer, so we don't have to go to as many villages. And last year, again, there was a further 45% reduction. So Haryana has been reasonably successful, and it's a good test case. In fact, Indian Oil has an ethanol refinery in a place called Panipat. 20% of the feedstock for that bioethanol refinery came from this plant. Came from this program, right? So that's something that they've acknowledged. And by the way, we worked very closely with the local administration, trying to see what specific messages needed to be given in the local environment. And by the way, all of this work has been pro bono from our side, right? Just trying to see what we can do almost as a challenge. Last year, we also went to a neighboring state called Punjab. Punjab is really where the problem is the biggest because the number of fires are much larger and managing that change has been substantial. So we had a pilot in about 15 villages in a district called Patiala, which then had a reduction of about 54%, right? Again, you may say only 54%, but it's still progress in the right direction. So we'll take that as a win. Broadly, there are lessons that we are learning every year and then refining the strategy. For us, cumulatively, there has been a reduction of about 500,000 tons of stubble that we've prevented from burning, number one. Number two, roughly just under 1 million tons of CO2 equivalent saved because you prevented the burning of the fire. And if you translate those reduction in fires to the number of disability adjusted life years, it roughly translates to 10,000 odd lives that have been saved, right? So beyond just the economics, and by the way, an increase in income for the farmers as well. So beyond this, what has been the story, right? So we think at an aggregate level, there is a substantial biofuels opportunity for India. And a case in point is something called sustainable aviation fuel. Most of you will know this, but decarbonizing aviation is really hard. One of the transition pathways is via sustainable aviation fuel, which is where the fuel is derived from, non-fossil based sources. Different countries and different locations have different feedstock options. Europe has a substantial used cooking oil or animal fat as a feedstock or as a raw material. And then some other parts have, Europe is also moving towards power to liquid as an option. But a big opportunity for India is in leveraging this agri residue. India produces 245 million tons of agri residue every year. Even if you repurpose 30% of that, you can essentially create 7.5 to 8.5 million tons of sustainable aviation fuel. This is through what's called the alcohol to jet process, which many of you might be familiar with. Now, why is this important? India's current aviation turbine fuel needs are roughly 4 to 4.5 million tons. By 2030, it could become 8 million tons, right? And while SAF is usually rated for no more than 50% of your blending needs, this itself could be a large opportunity to supply to the local ecosystem. But also importantly, it's something that can also be exported, right? So a role that India can play in not just decarbonizing its own aviation, but also supporting decarbonizing of aviation in other markets. So that's really the opportunity. For farmers, this creates 10 to 15% additional income generation, right? So not only is it good for the environment, it's also something where they make more money by not burning and selling their stubble to the producers or processors. So that's really the business opportunity that we've been talking about. One of the things that we've also then said is that there needs to be a broad, what we call an open circular biofuels network that might be important. I think the Indian ambassador talked about it earlier in his speech about some of the digital public infrastructure type initiatives. So we've been engaging with the founders of Beacon Protocol, and I think Sujit was here 2 years ago. So it's a nod to what they've done, but we're trying to apply those principles and collaborating with Beacon to see if some sort of an open network could then unlock some of the bottlenecks in storage and transportation of and processing of stubble. Why? Because stubble is a high volume, low calorific value feedstock, right? So you do want it to be optimized so as to gain economies of scale. So that's my report card for the year. I hope to be back next year, and I hope to report continued progress. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Viral. Can we say it's a good progressive report card? Do you want us to sort of rank it compared to the year one, or should we tell you that on the side? Yeah.
You guys are welcome to share your.
No, but very, very interesting, Viral. Thank you so much. And I think a lot of information. So this is something which we will revisit and we will talk about next year for sure. So welcome again. And from here, I would, of course, like to now pass it on to Swami once again. Over to you for our next panel discussion. Would you like to call your guests in?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll start with Viral again. Sorry, but you'll have to come back. Viral is partner and leader of sustainability and climate practice at Deloitte. Over 26 years of consulting experience across both private and public sectors. And his work is very well recognized in India across different sectors, and the industry leaders really appreciate what Viral brings to the table. So warm welcome, Viral. I also have Shilpa Sachdeva Buller, who is joining us online. Shilpa has been an integral part of Engaging India at Almedalen right from its inception, and she's been here. She's been in WISB for the last 2 years, last 2 editions, and this year, because of pressing commitments, she's joining us online. I'm clearly not happy about that, and Shilpa knows it. But having said that, a warm welcome to Shilpa. Shilpa is the Group Risk and Compliance Officer at PI Industries, with over 20 years of experience as a corporate generalist counsel. She brings deep expertise in governance and regulatory affairs, and she's been regularly voted as one of the top 100 women legal eagles in India. So she's an up-and-coming legal leader in India. And she's also here because it talks very nicely to what Klaus brought about in terms of trade-offs and risks. And Shilpa works extensively on climate risks, physical risks, and transition risks. I would also like to welcome Karthik Lakshman Kunjali. Warm welcome, Karthik, to Engaging India at Almedalen. I believe this is your first visit. We hope to have you here more for the next. Karthik is the CEO of Stockholm Water Technology, and his company has developed patented energy-efficient water purification solutions. He's got a background in power electronics, nanotechnology, and holds a PhD in water treatment. He's led the development and the global rollout of what is called as SWT's CAP 3D technology, and it's now used across 10 plus countries. So it's a new technology that's been rolled out, and it's finding a lot of traction. Before all of this, I think Karthik seems to have worked, again, cut from the same cloth, I must say. He's worked in defense avionics, digital media, including for the Indian Air Force, Disney, I don't know, Pixar, remember? And Sony. So warm welcome, Karthik.
Thank you.
I would also like to invite Mats Riesberg. Mats, warm welcome. Mats is part of an organization called the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, and super exciting. I'm a geek, and I get involved in Metcalfe's law and several other system of systems thinking laws. So it's great to have Mats here at Engaging India at Almedalen. He's the strategic relationship manager at Exponential Roadmap Initiative, where he leads climate action, a climate solution accelerator to help scale climate positive businesses. He's a contributing author to the Exponential Business Playbook, which I've read in, by the way, very interesting, very nice, and very visual, and very user-friendly, I must say. And I would highly recommend it to everyone. And he has a background in human geography and a passion for regenerative systems. Again, we had a talk before about food systems, so I'm very interested in understanding how the systems thinking really works. And a warm welcome, Mats. I would also like to welcome Cecilia Olne. Cecilia is the Chief India Representative for Sweden-India Business Council and leads the Sweden-India tech community, fostering collaboration between startups, investors, and institutions. She's practically an Indian for all practical purposes. She's been in Mumbai since 2007, and she was instrumental in the growth of one of India's most well-known wine companies called Sula Vineyards. So somehow the grapes keep coming back. But Sula Vineyards. She is also the founding partner at Visceral Capital, investing in India's 3D and metaverse ecosystem, and serves as chairwoman of Wikis, which is the, I'm assuming it's women's in, can you sort of?
Yeah, Wiki is it's an organization, EU-India Business Council, connecting India with the EU. Yeah. And Wiki is an organization that focuses on diversity and inclusion of women in various networks. I'm the chairwoman of that. I think I've been asked to go on this side, so I'm going to move over to...
And finally, I would like to welcome Raine Isaacson. Raine Isaacson is a friend first and a colleague later. Necessarily in that order. So Raine is an associate professor and docent in quality management and sustainable organizational development at Uppsala University. His research focuses on sustainability metrics, systems visualization, sustainable business, building materials, including cement and concrete. He is our leading voice as far as cement and concrete is concerned, especially in terms of reducing the carbon footprint of cement production and concrete production. And he's got some fantastic ideas. Sometimes I agree with them, sometimes I don't. But that's the way it goes, right? He's worked on sustainable construction solutions in sub-Saharan Africa, and of course teaches on sustainable development, CSR, and process management. And he was, for a very long period of time, working with Heidelberg Cement, one of the largest cement companies. Again, someone who comes from the industry and has taken on an academic role. So warm welcome, Raine. So Viral, maybe I'll start with you, right? If you look at the title, right? AI seems to be cropping up everywhere, right? And the whole idea of this panel is to say that how do you scale up business climate solutions, right? We seem to have a lot of interesting ideas, a lot of prototypes, right? So I'll ask you something like a lung opener, slightly above the board, right? So how do you turn AI into GI? Artificial intelligence is basically coding us. GI is green intelligence. How do you sort of turn AI into GI?
Great question, Swami. So broadly, two ways to think about AI. AI, and we are using AI extensively in our daily lives, and one can argue that. There's a study that we did recently that suggested that by 2030 it'll account for 3 to 5% of our aggregate energy needs. Right. So AI as a consumer of energy, potentially setting back our energy transition timelines because it's an somewhat unexpected source of energy consumption. So that's one view of AI. But AI also has a lot of use cases or where it can accelerate our journey into net zero. And that really, in my mind, is the biggest advantage or benefit. I think our previous panel talked about some very specific and very interesting use cases. I will add a couple more to the mix just to provoke the discussion. And by the way, I see AI as critical in both our mitigation and adaptation journeys, adaptation/resilience journeys. So just looking at those, I'm not sure if you guys picked this up, but Google launched a new weather forecasting model called GenCast. And this was maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago. What's interesting about it is able to produce weather forecasts at a 7 to 8 day window with an accuracy of what previously used to be available in 48 hours. Right. So imagine being able to predict the path of a hurricane or a cyclone, as an example, so far in advance.
Right.
And therefore being able to move people out of harm's way, take other preventive actions, improve our resilience, which I think is a fantastic use case or example of what AI can bring to us. Last week, and I have both Google stories, I don't know why, but last week they launched another example of city planning using, uploaded like paper drawings, not just, online or electronic designs, but paper drawings, etc., where they can help improve the designs of cities and make them more resilient, right? But a third one, which is somewhat more extreme, is the potential applicability of generative AI in areas of R&D. And the reason that's relevant is it can accelerate, our not just our drug discovery journeys, but other solutions that we need. So perhaps what PI might want to do and others. It can help accelerate those, innovation journeys as well. So those are some examples, which is why I am very hopeful that AI can truly help us drive to the GI journey.
Fantastic, Will. So I would like to sort of probably transfer it to Karthik, right? You are in the space of water. Let's put it broadly, right? And I'll ask you something very, very big question-based, right? So we seem to be talking a lot about carbon. Carbon is in everyone's conscience. Carbon credits, carbon offsets, right? And I'll ask Mats about the carbon law as we get along. But in my mind, water is the new carbon, isn't it? Would we not be measuring water in the same way?
I would definitely agree with you, because water to me is more of an enabler. It enables everything. When you're talking about energy systems, you need water to cool down. You're talking about hydrogen production, you need water to produce hydrogen. You need water to produce food, water to make cement, for steel, everything. You take water out of the equation and you can't have an industrialization of a society. So I would say that people have always underestimated the importance of water. Probably in the Nordics, because there's so much of it. I guess you don't have to worry too much. But in India, there is less amount of water, and people are pushing themselves to the limit to how to recirculate and regenerate, and as such. So and people don't understand how much carbon actually goes into cleaning water and using water. 1,000 liters of water, just a standard simple cleaning process, consumes at least 10 kilograms. And you use millions and millions and millions of liters of water for one single process.
Right.
And then to use that water, you add chemicals to it. Right. So now that goes back into your water stream. That's another set of carbon footprint that's added. So when you combine all of this, it's actually a huge part of the carbon. If you want to reduce carbon footprint, how do you make this water treatment and water circularity more sustainable is very important from my perspective. So I agree with you. Yeah.
Fantastic, Karthik. So Mats, exponential change. What do you guys do? And I've read about it, and I'm a geek, so I'm super interested in the carbon law and the planetary boundaries. So how are you sort of making it real for people like us? So what's exponential change, and how do you sort of implement what is called as the carbon law, which seems to be your core?
First of all, a huge pleasure to be here, and especially among such esteemed guests. So thank you.
The carbon law is the concept of halving emissions every decade up until net zero emissions by 2050. And this is in order to remain within the safe operating space of the planetary boundaries. So that's sort of the context to the carbon law. And how are we doing in relation to the carbon law? Well, not so good. We know that we have a very small window and that things will get worse before they get better. So this leaves us with one pathway, which is an exponential one. And I'm here with the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, and we bring together companies both that are transforming their business models, transforming the value chains, but also companies that are disruptive in providing solutions that can accelerate this transformation, to bring them to get together to collaborate in order to scale the solutions that enable the cutting of emissions.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. I think that was very, very insightful for me. So I'll come back to you with more questions, probably geeky questions. Shilpa, I'm going to come to you now. So Shilpa, I know that you've been working in different roles in PI industries for some time now, but you are now part of the legal risk function, so to speak, right? And I know that PI Industries looks at risk in a very, very forward-looking way. So you look at sustainability as an opportunity and risk as a certain lever for you to go ahead and assess that opportunity. So can you speak a little bit more about the kind of dynamism that's within PI and what you're doing?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for letting me join online. So big hi to Professor Roy. And Swami, sustainability is no more just an opportunity or investment. I'm copying without breaching copyrights of OE's word. It's abstract. So thank you for the new words, Professor. Sustainability is just not a framework, it's a mindset. Though it may seem abstract, it has become deeply embedded in how we operate and make decisions in our company. In our space, specialty chemicals, agrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, we started with small conscious steps. Today we stay with pride. Sustainability is no longer an initiative. It's part of our everyday thinking. We don't view sustainability as a risk. In fact, embracing it as a mindset has created new opportunities, sharpened our strategic lens, and allowed us to act with a purpose, with a clarity. Risk management, too, is not an afterthought. You have rightly said so. We are forward looking towards it. It begins at inception of every idea. Each idea is marinated well, structured very well, and put into an assessment. We do not move forward without understanding potential impacts and the vulnerabilities. This discipline does not hinder innovation at all, it rather strengthens it. I think this concept has stayed with us and helped the company to build resilience. I also agree with Viral's thoughts, that resilience is very important. And to scale climate solution, the role of risk function has evolved. We are no more controlling, we are rather seen as catalyst, from gatekeeper to enablers. And what we call risk today has become our competitive edge, if we manage it with a courage. Also, living into the complete theme of it, I think AI has become a powerful ally to this. Um, I think AI, risk, sustainability together, when they come together, we do not just survive the change, we lead it. So, a responsible use of it to help companies build up accuracy, data accuracy, and transparency is the key going forward.
Thanks, Shilpa. I think great to hear these thoughts. I'll sort of come back to you again on some other deeper questions. Cecilia, maybe I'll go to you. And you've been in India from 2007, so that's like 17, 18 years. You've seen the Indian growth journey. So 2007, we didn't have UPI, Unified Payment Interface, which is the equivalent of Swish here. We didn't have Aadhaar in the way it has rolled out, etc. Right? But today, you've been in India and you've seen massive population scale solutions coming up from India. I'm going to flip it, saying that what can Sweden learn from scaling up so quickly and so rapidly?
Sweden has a lot to learn from India, and as you said, Swami, vice versa. India has a lot to learn from Sweden, and that's truly where we come together and can grow together. I also want to thank Rupali Mehra for providing this fantastic platform. Engaging India at Almedalen is the first time that I'm here and speaking, and I see so much interest around India, and I believe that you've been very instrumental in making that happen. Also having Mr. Ambassador speaking, having his first engagement in Sweden here at Almedalen. There's a lot to learn, and to take a little bit of maybe a step back for you who don't know me enough from the introduction, is that of course I'm from Sweden. I'm born in Karlstad, but I moved to India 17 years ago, and I had this idea that I could actually scale an industry that was very small at that time, and that was the wine industry. And I had the know-how. I knew wines. I was a sommelier, and there were no sommeliers in India. So I moved to India for that same reason. And doing that, we scaled, and we scaled fast. And we had a product, or we had a knowledge of something that we could educate. And fast forward on that is that something that became extremely important for us at the Vineyard was to have sustainability as a core, because we knew that if we are the first mover in the country, people are going to look at us and they're going to follow what we are doing. So without actually having spoken about that widely, we are today the wine company that I was a part of building is the most sustainable wine in the world. We had to do everything from, of course, using solar panels to rainwater harvest systems and everything you can possibly think of. And we have educated all the farmers and everyone around us so they do the same. And I think that's just also like something that we could learn, how you can go to a place and do something, but also keep in mind that with power come great responsibility. And fast forward on that is that's one thing, of course, we can learn from each other. I personally wanted to have people be more sustainable and think about climate. And being in India, where 25%, or sorry, I take that back, 50% are under 25 years old, my focus then become on how can I actually mold the consumer and actually engage with them at a very early age. So I started then understanding the mindset and the mind pattern of the youth. And that's where I got into the whole space of investing in educational behaviors. And that's how I got into the space of actually simulation and gaming. So there's so much we can learn on how we can actually tap into the ecosystems in the various countries. And while you're asking the same question about how can we learn from each other, what we are doing with Sweden India Business Council, of course, is that we're connecting the two countries, but we're actually having India come and learn from Sweden, and Sweden getting the know-how to India to scale it with various activities. And that we do, of course, with everything from Sweden India Innovation Bridge, with Sweden India Tech Community, building ecosystems, and we also do it with Sweden India Business Leaders Roundtable with 40 Swedish CEOs and 20 Indians. Again, with the core focus right now being on sustainability, education, and on the topic today, Gen AI innovation, tapping into the youth, and really working with them to make some great changes between the two countries.
Thank you, Cecilia. Raine, I'll come to you. I know that, and I've been part of some of your research and network. So I know that you've been working with India, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Sweden. And we've had a long discussions on appropriate technologies and what needs to be done and what's the way forward for sustainability. So we've heard one way forward, which is in terms of carbon capture utilization and a very technocratic view. You have a completely different way of looking at scaling up. So please.
Joel, I think the first thing is to know what you want to do. And I think Klaus spoke about the trade-offs, which is how I want to see things, which is kind of in a perspective of the eco-efficiency. So it's not only the footprint, the carbon footprint. It is what we get for that footprint. And so then there would be different solutions in different places. The kind of a global north solution with the carbon capture and storage and the plan for, I think you heard about the Breivik plant that was recently inaugurated by Heidelberg. It's only half the plant carbon dioxide which is taking care of. The plan for Slite is to build a full carbon capture and storage, the first in the world. And it would capture, in that case, something like 1.7 million tons of carbon dioxide. The price tag is $1 billion US. The price of 2 cement plants. Now, Sweden is a rich country. I said, look, it's only going to make your buildings like going from 1% to 2% of the price for the cement. So the cement price will double or triple. Now, only that 90% of new buildings are coming up in the global south. And if I go to the country where I work in Tanzania, and I said the cement will be 3 times as expensive, I mean, there's no way, it's absolutely no way it's going to work.
Correct.
So then you need to think about, okay, but so how do we actually get the things built, both for a low price and for a low carbon footprint?
Correct.
And so it comes back to how do you define sustainability in the context? And Max Oswald, who our previous colleague and my PhD student who graduated in October, he said that, okay, and he coined this, that when we try to define sustainability, we start with at least. So for sustainable building, it is at least affordable and carbon neutral.
Correct.
Which then, and to add, it delivers what you need, and then it is at least affordable and carbon neutral. So we have the trade-off there. So you need to see, what do I get for it? Well, I mean, it's a square meter of wall or it's a square meter of building. That's the value that we get, and then we compare it. And the solutions for that in Sweden and in sub-Saharan Africa are very different. So we need to understand the what before we go to the how. Okay. And then AI can help. But I think with the what, it's still the human brain that needs to decide.
Okay. So fantastic. So I think it segues very nicely to my second set of questions. I'll follow the same order, Viral. From the what perspective, right? And considering that how do you scale climate solutions? So we have climate solutions available. So your crop residue management in some way or the other is a climate solution that works at a systemic level, right? But it's almost as if that there is a scaling issue. So my question to you, Viral, is that can AI solve the scaling problem in terms of either speeding up or giving better insights, convincing decision makers better? So how can AI help in scaling climate solutions?
Again, an excellent question, Swami. So broadly, at least my thinking based on my work on the ground has been that for any such a problem that needs to be scaled, you will need each one of the components to come together. And these components are the startup community, the finance world, being venture or whatever, the government, the private sector, the large corporations, and academia or universities. Based on our research, between half to 55% of technologies that we need to get to net zero are still at conceptual or prototyping stage.
Correct.
Which means that the journey from conceptualization, prototyping to bringing them to market needs to be accelerated. And by the way, the solutions may be known, but getting them at commercial scale is a challenge. So if you think of that as the sequence, AI can definitely play a role upfront in bringing them from conceptual to prototyping stage, right? Because you can test different model scenarios, etc., etc. But ultimately, the various components that need to come together will continue to remain, right? So, for example, the government can play a role in not just the policy bit, but by assigning mandates, right? So, for example, taking sustainable aviation fuel as an example, there is a mandate that CORSIA has. This is the International Civil Aviation Organization, of 2% blending by 2027, 3% by 28, and 5% by 30. And by the way, EU has an even more stringent mandate, and Scandinavian countries are even higher. So, but the point is there is a mandate that comes in, which kind of forces, it acts as a forcing function. The other things that governments can do is to provide incentives, either linked to production or linked to output, right? So that's one. From a corporate perspective, there is a demand signal that needs to be provided, right? That I'm willing to procure if you were to make this available, right? So that's one. So without making like open-ended commitments, these are realistically possible. And obviously, all of this then encourages the innovation ecosystem to move faster. So long answer, but I just wanted to set
absolutely.
that context.
Absolutely. I think the context is very important, Viral, and it sort of at least allows me to get back to Karthik again, right? You are in the innovation ecosystem, and you have not only have you passed the prototype stage, you're now available in 10 plus countries. And it is a climate smart solution that you have at play, right? So what are the things that you need in order to become the next IKEA or a next Volvo of your space, right? So that's the big jump that you need to do. So what do you need in order to do that?
I can probably try to start with a little bit of background of the water treatment industry as such. AI has not penetrated much into the water treatment sector. I think just recently, Veolia signed a deal with Mistral, which is a French company, for putting AI solutions into the water treatment sector. But generally, the water treatment industry has been very legacy-driven. People are afraid of adopting new technologies purely because sometimes it's such huge scales to actually adopt it at municipal level. And second is, it's a very subsidized industry. Governments have always subsidized water. So cost of actually treating water becomes very important. Nobody, whatever benefits you give in terms of carbon reduction footprint or recycling, in the end, they'll ask you, what's my cost of water per meter cube? Is it going to be less? Is it going to be more? Unless you pass that barrier, it's going to be difficult to actually scale quickly. So how have we helped manage that? And I think some of the things were given in the previous panels. When we came out as an initial startup, right from the university, Vinova and Erwin and they actually helped us quite a bit trying to build up the prototypes and stuff like that. And Sweden has a great ecosystem for investors in these early stages. And there is a little bit of a gap between, what we call the gray area between just before the company is already scaled up, where there's a little bit of problem in getting money. But just like Viral pointed out, having regulations coming in, driving the industries to move into certain direction, like how the EU is now putting in new regulations for water treatment, wastewater treatment, that actually helps industries to adopt new technologies because now they're looking for new technologies to meet these challenges.
Right.
That basically helps us to move forward faster, building partnerships. I mean, we just signed deals in Saudi Arabia where water treatment is, very, very important. So I think in using these ecosystems well, it has helped us to reach this point.
Fantastic. I think it sort of has triggered off a question that will go to Shilpa later. So Shilpa, hang on for some time. Mats, you have an ecosystem approach, right? You're an organization I've seen some of the members, some of the biggest companies are members, right? So how does an ecosystem approach help scale climate solutions or climate action?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really enjoying the range of this discussion, and I think some excellent points have been made now on the support system needed to scale climate solutions. But I would like to stop for a second on exponentials and exponential scaling, because we do have a total inability to comprehend exponentials, and this hinders us in our thinking, because throughout our history, change has been incremental, and we're deeply wired to think in terms of linear change. And this hinders us in two ways. One, from really understanding the consequences of inaction, but then also understanding the potential with exponential scaling of solutions. Because solutions, they follow this S-curve pattern where they grow very slowly at first, and then reach a number of tipping points where costs begin to drop and investments and efficiencies increase, and then they take off. As we've seen now with solar, wind, with battery storage, electric vehicles, for instance. And in the exponential roadmap, this is a report we launched in 2018, we identified two things. One, as has been mentioned, we have the solutions needed to achieve this crucial first halving of global emissions. And we know that they can be scaled exponentially. So now really all of the focus is about building the support systems through policy, finance, technology, as has been alluded to, and through climate leadership. And I think to your question on network building, climate leadership is one that we recognize in the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, where an ecosystem is extremely important, because we know that the things that really matter are speed and scale. And in order to achieve speed and scale, we need to work together across an ecosystem, which is, of course, why events like this and discussions like this are incredibly important as well.
Perfect, Mats. So it's a great it's a great way of explaining how an ecosystem and a network really works. Shilpa, I'll come to you, right? And I'll pick up something that Karthik mentioned, saying that one of the ways in which he sees himself or his company or his solution or the water space itself scaling up is regulation or the regulatory push, right? And you are in a company that's very, very dynamic, wants to grow fast, but in the right manner, and is really focused on sustainability, right? Sustainability is an organizational culture internally within PI. So as someone who's at the forefront of risk and regulation, so how do you see the trade-offs between risks and regulations and opportunity?
Yeah, thanks, Swami. So to an extent, yes, the biggest risk for our industry is, combining regulatory, environmental, operational challenges. And being into the chemical sector, increasingly environmental regulations are coming up. They are not just, holding up us for disposal of hazardous substances, waste management, emissions. They're also asking us, what you're doing on the product stewardship, how responsible you are. Picking up the examples of the, plastic waste management, which is quite a stringent guideline, but, with a focus on the customers, particularly the agriculture, domestic consumers, to the farmers. They've asked us, to give our identification numbers also on the labels, that to what extent they can hold us liable for all the packaging waste too.
Correct.
Global regulations are becoming more complex and also expensive to comply with, because at times you're not prepared. But keeping a watch on these transitions is one of the core areas where the risk management comes in handy.
Right.
Tendency on the risk function and clubbed with the compliance function, the audience, the internal stakeholders, they look up as to, that how you can be proactively telling us what to do, how to mitigate it, and how do we implement effective these regulations by even understanding it.
Correct.
Couple of weeks back, we had a similar discussion with some of the environmentalist lawyers, in fact, the judiciary participating with us, talking about the product bans, the litigation, how these regulations are also opening up avenues for many people to come up with smart practices which could be embedded into agriculture space to ensure there is reduction of the water usage, there is more efficient ways of using the water for growing the crops, utilization of the seeds, and taking it to the next hybrid level. But having said that, the insight from the risk standpoint is the industry dependency on the complex chemistries puts us in the regulatory spotlight.
Right.
And the strategic priority for everyone then becomes is that if I want to switch to a greener chemistry, a safer chemistry, how do I make a proactive compliance integration, a more sustainable integration?
Right.
And I think that's where the AI is going to help us, because little old school thought, I do believe that human brain cannot replace an AI, but if you use it appropriately and with little responsible, I think AI models can bring in a lot of governance and proactive approach to ensure ethical and reliable use of the new technologies, even if they are too complex to handle by the environment.
Thanks, Shilpa. Perfect summary of the kind of complex challenges that you face, but you still navigate it from an opportunity lens. I'll quickly go to Cecilia. I know that we are, as usual, I've taken up too much time, but Cecilia, a quick one. When can we expect to see Sula wines in Systembolaget?
We actually had Sula wines at Systembolaget many years ago, and we do have an importer in Sweden, so there is some wines here. But I must also admit that India is big enough to focus on as it is. So our focus when it comes actually to the wine, we wanted to be a global brand, so that was one of the things. I put India on the map and Indian wines on the map. But there's enough to do in India, and hence we're focusing fully now on working and educating the farmers, etc., to grow more wines and all the different things, and again educating all the other vineyards and winery owners about the sustainability practice, etc. But yeah, good question. But India is big enough to do business, if I put it that way, for anyone. So do look at India, and if you do look at India in any different industries, I'm happy to talk to you about that. Wine is, of course, something that's a little bit behind now. No, it's much more about the investments and leadership and anything. And I loved the whole discussion about ecosystem, because I just love connecting people. I'd love to invite you also to the ecosystem that we have built connecting Sweden and India, because we in 2016 was asked by the respective governments to set up Sweden-India Business Leaders Roundtable by the respective Prime Minister at that time, Stefan Löfven and Mr. Modi. And for me to connect on the government and with these large corporates with the startups and with the game changers, so to speak, the innovators, the universities, academia, media, and investors, if I didn't mention that, I created Sweden-India Tech Community. And that's an ecosystem that really is the red carpet to India, red carpet to Sweden. Love for you to join that. And I would also want to echo what Matt said. Almedalen is such a great ecosystem activity, and I'm so happy to see more of India here, and also Mr. Ambassador who is here with us. Such a pleasure and honor to be here in the same room as you and at Almedalen the first time, and really seeing India on the roadmap. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Cecilia. Raine, I know that you've worked on alternative binders. So how do you scale alternative binders?
Now I do my politician thing, and
yeah, absolutely. You can do that.
Yeah, I was thinking what Viral was saying. How do we go as quickly as possible from ideas to outcomes? So opportunities to outcomes, and it's a problem like with the alternative binders in Africa. There's been 30 years of research. It works in the laboratory. Nobody works with the implementation. Nobody owns the opportunity. It could be millions of dollars saved, but nobody has the opportunity. I've been talking to Chalmers now and their civil engineering department and trying to see how they could engage their students a little bit more. But we have the problem that ordinary Swedish students, what they know about Africa, it fits on a stamp. So how do we do it? And could we actually create a virtual benchmark somehow? Not a twin, but something. So this is how it actually could look. And you would point out the missing pieces. Because now it works in the laboratory, but then you need to take it to the field. So if it's a calcined clay or an agricultural ash, you need to somehow burn it in a controlled temperature. How do we do it? Simple technology exists probably somewhere in India. Then you need to grind it with a simple mill. You can buy them on Alibaba, but nobody has them in Africa. So you can see that the bits and pieces are there, but they are in nobody's mind. So the opportunity is without an owner. Now, how do we put the opportunity so that students at least could start thinking of it and maybe solving parts of it and then getting... But the problem which we actually encountered, because I asked the people in Chalmers, I said, okay, so where do we actually guide this knowledge that we build up if we do sequences of students? And there was no answer. So the knowledge management of something, I mean, universities have their databases, but normally, or then Google Docs, but that becomes complicated. So suddenly there was even a knowledge management kind of a thing missing, which I think AI should be able to solve. Or you put them everything out there, and you have a smart AI agent, and then picks the information from the internet. But there, I think I would need some help.
Yes, of course, Raine, and we're all there to help you out. I know that you've been very passionately following this for the last 30 years at least, so we should all come together and try and help out. So thank you so much. I know we are on the top of the hour. I had a couple of other questions. That's for the next year. I'll promise to be in time. So thank you so much, Viral, Karthik, Mats, Cecilia, Raine. Hope to see you again soon. And Shilpa, of course. How can I forget? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Well, there's about 5 startups and half an hour between us and some fika with cake and coffee. But we do have some very young and innovative startups who have come here from Stockholm and I think other cities as well in Sweden to share what are their disruptions and what are their ideas through which they can support and they can solution for climate action. So give me a thumbs up from the production side when we are ready with our startups, and then I can start announcing them. So what these startups, perhaps I can just give a quick sort of round. And some of you all, if you want to take a leg stretcher, please do that and come back in a minute or so. But what we are going to do in as the leg stretcher, at the lightning pitch, I beg your pardon, is that we are going to ask these startups to come and literally make a pitch. And make what we call a lightning 3-minute pitch, right? In which we are going to ask these startups to exemplify how innovation, how the innovation is solutioning for climate action. So what are they solving for? What is the innovation? And how are they thinking scale? Because I think the previous panel also spoke about scale. Exponential scale, and really the challenge of scale, even in terms of our own imagination. So if we are ready, we can start calling the startups. Oh, perfect. A big welcome to Sticky Solar Power. Please come on stage. Jonas Budgård, the CEO, as well as Abhinav Mulasi, Research and Development Engineer. And if there is any other colleagues that you have on, okay, it's going to be Jonas on stage. Welcome, Jonas. We also have Arkiv, and we have Axel Wolin, co-founder and CEO, and Oliver Gruth, co-founder and CTO. If you all are here, please come on stage. Yeah. There you are. Next is Traced Systems. May I call Johan Toll, co-founder and CIO. Welcome. Cyclotech. Khalid Kosmas, founder and CEO. Welcome. Okay. And what is your name? Okay, more than welcome. And Capitalizer, Rutvika Acharya, and who's the CEO, and Alejandro Romero, who's also part of Capitalizer. If he is here, welcome on stage as well. So all of you have 3 minutes. What's the innovation? What are you solving for? How do you plan to scale? So 3 simple questions. And I believe each startup also has their presentation to make, right? So I think we are starting with Sticky Solar Power. The rest of us can come on the side perhaps, so you get the stage and you get the mic as well. And then we kind of come in again. So you can go on both sides. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me? I think it works.
Let's play the presentation.
Okay, thank you for having me. My name is Jonas Budgård. I'm the CEO of Sticky Solar Power. Sticky Solar Power has developed the tape solution. The tape solution is developed to decrease production cost and increase efficiency in solar module manufacturing. So our customers is solar module manufacturers. And what's happening in India is very, very big. Solar is growing very rapidly. So what do we do and what is the tape solution? Well, we have developed an interconnector method to interconnect the single solar cells in the modules instead of soldering. Soldering has some disadvantages where the tape solution could help the industry to reduce cost and increase efficiency. We increase efficiency by removing the high temperature that is used in soldering. The tape connects these cells in room temperature, which enables the use of high efficient solar cells. And on top of that, it reduced the amount of silver and lead in the solar cells. Silver is a very precious material, which is very costly, and lead is not good for the environment. But the tape solution reduces this material, which enables cost reduction. We have conducted a bunch of tests to make sure that this solution would withstand a very long lifetime. And our business model is to supply the tape, the consumable, and also the machinery for the module manufacturers. And our business model is based on customer benefit. So both us and the customer will have a benefit by using the solution. The tape itself isn't conductive. It's not a conductive polymer. The tape only acts as a carrier for copper wires. So the electricity is conducted through copper wires, but the tape keeps everything in place instead of soldering. And the tape solution could be used both in high volume production, such as in India, to reduce cost and silver, but also in niche markets where the visual aspect is very, very important. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
And we'll of course have questions for you after our first round is, the round of everybody is done, and we'll open it up for questions. But let's move on to Arkiv now. The floor is yours, please. Welcome. Don't hide behind. Come. Can we play the presentation, please?
Is this my clicker? Oh, how do I go back? There we go. Yeah, so by 2026, in all EU countries, the EPDB regulations are going to become national law. In 2023, India revised its national building code for new buildings to be 30% more energy efficient than traditional ones. And now in Sweden, by 2025, our most fundamental building law is being revised, and it's throwing the sector for a toss up. Regulations are becoming more and more complex, and architects are having to work more and more with regulations. We want architects to be artists, and we don't want projects to have to be redrawn because of failing regulatory compliance. That's why we're using AI to build the co-pilot for architects, which is Arkiv. So 111 billion Swedish crowns, around 10 billion euros or dollars, is lost in construction error. And this is every year just in Sweden. This is around a quarter of the total revenue of the construction industry that's lost in just simple errors that we think are totally preventable. The biggest offenders are compliance breaches with regards to accessibility requirements, especially in Sweden. We also think that as firms are becoming larger and larger, less decentralized, then good work is being duplicated a lot, it's being hidden, people within the firm aren't able to take part of each other's good innovations. And we want good design to leave a mark, not only for the project, but for the future. And that's what we wish to accomplish with this project. Yeah. With regards to scale, we see a potential of 14,000 architects and others in Sweden. And as I mentioned, this goes for all EU countries. So we see a huge market here that's only becoming more and more intense with regards to these regulations for construction. We currently have a lot of pilots at some of Sweden's largest architecture firms. And we also have pilots within non-architecture domains, such as landscape architecture and also construction workers, enabling us to reach even further. By utilizing agentic AI, as mentioned previously on this stage, we are able to scale very fast by building modularized. So we only have to change a small part of our product itself to access a whole new country or set of regulations and be able to help more people. So what we want is that we want, as I said, architects to return to artists and projects to not have to be go to waste from failing to comply with these regulations. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And now let's move on to our third startup, Traced Systems. Johan? Yeah, if we can pull up the presentation of Traced Systems, please. There.
Okay, super. Thank you. What if you could, through one scan on your mobile phone, have countless of impacts? What if you can measure and prove the authenticity? You can remove the fakes from your environments. What if you can measure the sustainability and prove and showcase how you are moving into a more circular world? And at the same time, how you can also achieve regulatory compliance that we see coming out there, especially here in Europe. That is what we are doing at Traced. So how do we do that? We create digital twins based on the blockchain technology of your products that you produce, that you manufacture. If that is batteries for your cars, if that is leather jackets from the textile industry, or if that is furniture, for example, we can create digital twins that can track the full supply chain from its inception, from where did you source the minerals of your battery, from where did you source the leather for your leather jacket, until has this been properly recycled, or have you actually just thrown the battery out in the ocean? And that will be a regulatory requirement coming upon all the European citizens in 2 years' time. So all manufacturers of batteries, all manufacturers of garments from the textile industry will need to fulfill and ensure that they create something that is called a digital product passport. And that is exactly what we have built on Traced Systems. So, and that is also a way for you as a business to showcase that you are compliant, that you have measured, you can verify your sustainability efforts in a very good way. And of course, you can remove any fakes produced or trying to copy what you have done. You can prove the authenticity of your products in a correct way. All of this stored on the blockchain solution. So I think we have more or less solved the triple challenge, as we call it here: the authenticity, the sustainability, and the compliance through one digital twin, the digital product passport. And we've been working together with the EU Commission for 3 years on this. We're fully compliant with what we see, all the regulatory parts coming out there. And that's also super relevant for companies in India that want to start to sell and offer their products in Europe, because all companies coming from outside Europe will also need to fulfill the requirements on having a digital product passport connected to whatever they sell in Europe here, starting with batteries, textile industries, furnitures, and it will come electronics and other parts as we speak. So every year, be more and more regulatory requirements on this. So how are we looking to scale this? I think the first thing, we've been in a lot of interesting discussion here, how can you scale your business? I think one is, of course, sometimes you will need to meet up with the regulatory requirements. But what we can do is also prove the efficiency. We can prove that you will have more business success by using digital product passport. You can have more engagement from your clients. You can have more communication with your clients. You can actually increase the business. You can prove the sustainability. And through that, you can win more businesses. So we have a classic SaaS-based revenue model for our first-tier clients. We have professional services. We can help and we can work with system integrators like big consultancy companies to help them to integrate the solution into their clients. And the third stream is obviously, we talked a lot about AI here and web-free engagement. I think we also can see that through AI, we can now actually advise. We can make the digital product passports more insightful, so it can recommend you what should you do, how should you act to become more compliant, how should you act to reduce the emissions of your solutions. So that is more or less Trace Systems. So thanks a lot for my 3 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. Very, very interesting. You can keep it here. May I call Cyclotech, please? Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Clearly.
Right, so I'm here to fill in for my colleague, Halit. He got sick yesterday. I run a small investment company, venture company, and I just came into the company like 6 weeks ago. So forgive me if I'm a little bit winging it here. So skip the bin, Cyclotech in is the pitch. I'm going to skip a little bit here. I wasn't aware of this, but textiles are a huge problem in our society. It's a massive problem, way bigger than I actually understood. And these numbers speak for themselves. I had no idea, for instance, that the sort of textiles consume so much water, and that I think the combined emission of maritime and flight textiles consume more CO2 than maritime and flight combined. So it's quite a massive problem. Very complicated value chain. I believe India is the second largest textile manufacturer in the world. So there's some sort of connections here. What Cyclotech does is putting together a whole value chain for the first part of the problem. So there's a massive value chain, and the issue in my opinion, is that the sorting centers that take in the textiles after we use them are not they're not equipped for the volumes that are coming. The first of all, that it's illegal now to throw away textiles. Our municipalities are drowning in textiles, and there's no system available today to handle these volumes. And the bottleneck actually lies in the manual labor of sorting for reuse, for repurposing, for recycling, and then finally for incineration. So this is a huge issue. So what Cyclotech is doing is trying to address the first part of this value chain, activating the consumers, giving them systems together with municipalities to actually capture the textiles, sorting them, putting them into these sorting facilities, and maximizing the amount or the volumes of textiles that go back to reuse, back to us in some form or fashion. Secondly, repurposing, which I understand India is quite big on. There's a lot of industries growing right now where you are repurposing textiles. And then as you maybe know, there's a lot of investments into recycling, huge investments. H&M and others are actually investing in that. And they have one big problem, and that's that their feedstock, they don't have enough feedstock. And where do they get the feedstock from? From the sorting facilities. So to me, this is interesting. It's complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, from consumers, working with municipalities, financing. So that's why we are involved in this venture. For scale, what we're doing right now is that we're looking at bringing in capital and building public-private partnerships around the investments into these sorting facilities. Sweden needs around 25 facilities, one per region. You need to share them because there's an investment involved in this. Today, the NGOs are running this and they can't handle the volumes. And the only way to handle this is by automating the sorting facilities. So it requires capital and drastic speed in adoption. So that's what we are doing. Yeah, it's a challenge, and I sort of thank you.
All right, and now we have Capitalizer. Welcome, Rutvika. Let's hear it from you.
All right, so hi everyone, I'm Ritvika, CEO and co-founder of Capitalizer, and our mission is to make green hydrogen economy viable. We've actually heard a lot about hydrogen today, so I'm quite excited to talk about it. But why are we even talking about hydrogen? So hydrogen as a fuel has one of the highest energy densities, and because of that, you can use it for many different applications, from steel production to aviation fuel to fertilizers. This has increased the demand for hydrogen, and it's expected to grow 7 times by 2050. Now, the problem is that over 90% of all the hydrogen that we use today, unfortunately, comes from fossil fuels, and it leads to almost a gigaton of CO2 emissions annually. So this has created an even more pressing demand for green hydrogen solutions. And the most common way to actually produce green hydrogen is through electrolysis. So you take electricity and then you split water from H2O into H2 and O2. And there are a couple of problems with the current technologies that exist. In today's electrolyzers, these gases are produced at the same time. And hydrogen is a highly explosive gas, which requires expensive membranes in the middle to make sure the gases don't mix and cause any explosion. Additionally, these electrolyzers cannot be directly coupled with renewable energy sources because they lack the flexibility to handle fluctuating power, which ultimately can lead to gas mixing again. So this leads to kind of why the current technology is not scaling. It's too expensive, there are safety risks, and there is low efficiency with renewables. And that is what we have solved at Capitalizer. We've developed a patented new electrolyzer technology that never produces hydrogen and oxygen at the same time. By doing this, the gases can never mix, which makes it a lot safer, but you also don't need any membranes anymore, which makes it at least 30% cheaper, and it can be directly coupled to renewable energy sources. We're also more sustainable solutions because unlike traditional and conventional electrolyzers, we don't use any rare earth metals like platinum, iridium, or ruthenium. We started as a research at KTH University, and since then we were incorporated 3 years ago. We have already been granted a patent, have 3 more pending applications. We've raised over $500,000 in both equity and soft funding, and developed a system scale prototype. To scale further, we are currently scaling the production capacity of our electrolyzer and engaging in industrial pilots where we have commitment from a large energy player in Europe, but also actually a manufacturing license LOI with India. So we see a lot of potential there ultimately. It's myself, and together with Professor Joydeep and our team, we are a team of serial entrepreneurs, have done more than 5 deep tech startups, and have a lot of passion for climate impact. We are looking for more industrial pilots and fundraising. So if anyone's interested or has some good leads for us, please let me know. Thank you.
All right, so we have 5 exciting startups. If there are any questions, please raise your hand and we'll pass the mic to you all. Anything that has sort of provoked or sort of lit some bulbs that you might want to ask. I do have a question, but we'll do a round first. Yeah, we'll pass the mic there. Abhinav, can we pass the mic there, please? That's mic number H1?
Yeah, H1.
Okay, perfect.
And maybe it's prescient. So it's for hydrogen, so Capitalizer. Quick question.
have you guys assessed what the relative cost of hydrogen production at scale? I know you guys are still in proof of concept and pilot, but what would be the difference between conventional hydrogen production versus what you guys do? Have you guys had an estimate?
Is this on? Yeah, perfect. So we have done, and based on our current specifications that we are already able to achieve, we see around 25% cost reduction compared to an alkaline electrolyzer on per kilogram cost of hydrogen, and compared to a PEM, we are looking at around 32%. So it's quite a lot, and we are currently looking at being close to €2 per kilo of hydrogen. But we have a roadmap to actually reach the dollar that we always talk about, yeah, as we scale.
Any more questions? Raise your hand, we'll pass the mic.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So my question is with Jonas, Sticky Solar Power. My question is, what are your major areas? I mean, do you offer a warranty for the tape, for the solar tapes?
A warranty?
A warranty for the solar tapes? And if yes, for how long? I mean, what is the duration? Because as you said, you are majorly focusing in India. So in India, we don't work without guarantee or warranty. So my main question is that.
Yeah, of course. And it's the same for the whole solar industry. You have to make sure that the models will withstand a very, very long lifetime. So the standard way is to secure more than 80% after 25 years. So we have the same. We will have to fulfill the same standards as anyone else. Otherwise, it's not doable. So yes, we have a warranty.
Thank you. And I do also have one question with Johan from Traced. Have you focused on any particular industry in EU or in India, or you are just generalizing means with the products? Any particular industry you are focusing on?
That's a good question. So we have built a general digital product solution that can cover multiple types of industries. But initially we are focusing on the battery industry because we see that's a heavy demand for these type of services. And we also focus in on the textile industry for the garments, as we also heard from Cycloth here, that it's a critical demand. They need to prove that they are sustainable. They need to prove that garments are not thrown away or not burned up somewhere else here. So those are the two industries we are focusing on initially, but then we are exploring additional industries to come as we see the interest builds up. And that's also the two industries that will first be regulated in Europe. So in 2 years' time, you need to have a DPP connected to your garment or to your batteries. Otherwise, you're not allowed to sell it in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, there's one more hand there. Yeah, go ahead, speak.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Yeah, so my question is like, I think anyone can take this question. So whenever we come across like solving an issue with sustainability, it is said that we don't solve the issue, but we just, whenever we are handling a pollution or situation in one of the sectors, then it's often said that we just replace this pollution or something to some other sector by avoiding this in this sector. So I think many of you have spoke about sustainability here. So I just want to know what's your take on this. I think traceability is doing a good job in tracing out whether it's sustainable or not. So when I heard the pitch about Capitalizer, I felt like, so since you are using the electricity for the electrolysis, so I was wondering if whether where the electricity comes from. So are you like tracing the sustainability of the electricity sources, like whether it comes from the fossil fuels or whether it comes from a green source or whatever it is. So I just want to know what's your general take on this.
So, I mean, in general, green hydrogen can only be called green if the electricity comes from renewable energy sources. So, yes, the electricity will have to be completely green. And That's also why for us, I mean, during the development of the product as well, for example, we don't use platinum, iridium, these kind of rare earth metals, which are very widely used in other electrolyzers today. But we wanted to make sure that we are trying to stay sustainable across the board to actually have a really green and sustainable solution. But it will always be more challenging to do that, for sure, when you have readily available materials. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your sharp questions. If there is one more, please go ahead.
I can also add, I think it's a super relevant question. I worked a lot in the carbon credit industry, and unfortunately there's been a lot of greenwashing there. So I think the proof that, how can I prove that if I buy a carbon credit, that the tonnage has been removed, that the forest is still growing, that actually the carbon dioxide has been removed and put into an old drilling hole outside of Norway, for example. And that is why I was so interested in using blockchain technology and the provenance of it. The other part that we do at Trace System is also how can we incentivize people to actually return your garment for recycling here. So that's why we also have models to trigger that and help consumers actually prove, hey, gamify this and help them to get credits for maybe for the next buy of a garment piece if they return their leather jacket for recycling once it's been used for a long time. So good questions.
Anyone wants to take the answer? Or? And then I think we'll wrap it there with the closing note. There's Fika waiting.
Perhaps I could add on to this sentiment that, you know, if you make one part of the business more sustainable, you're introducing, you know, pollution in some other part. I don't really believe this to be true in all cases. I think if you make, for example, energy efficient buildings, they are more energy efficient for their whole lifetime. It's better for the people building them, you know, the constructor gets better interest rates if he can prove that their building is going to run at a lower cost for its lifetime, and also the actual people, you know, sourcing the materials drives innovation to create better building materials, and it also, you know, enables architects to adhere to these new environmental regulations by, for example, the EU and such. So I really think it's a win-win-win, and being like skeptical in this way, it's not always true.
All right. I think we've had some very, very interesting questions as well from the audience. So thanks for that, and fantastic, innovative ideas, and sort of the journey that y'all are in. I wish you all the very best, and hope to hear more on it perhaps next year at Engaging India at Almedalen. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. So we'll do a quick wrap up. We will do a quick wrap up, and if I can call Uwe back on stage, and where's Swami? Swami back on stage as well, and perhaps we can take the conversation down. So I won't hold you. Go ahead. Who's first? Closing notes.
So maybe I'll quickly try and sum it up. So we are in the 6th edition of Engaging India at Almedalen, and the focus in the last 2 editions, Rupali and Uwe, at least for me, has been in terms of saying that how do you scale up climate solutions. So we started with going ahead and focusing on sustainability, and then saying that what are the solutions that are there, and today the focus is on scaling up sustainable solutions. So we've seen some of the solutions here, at least for me, I see some of the solutions which are fundamental to many of the pieces of the overall value chain. So for instance, we've had some fantastic presentations on green hydrogen, on trust trace over the overall ecosystem. But some of the questions that I would like to explore or take forward for the next year would be in terms of the fact that if you do produce green hydrogen at a much lower cost, let's say 25%, 30%, 35% lower cost, how do you store it? So that's the second part of it, saying that how do you store it and how do you sort of make it usable across existing systems of transportation, existing ferries, existing cars, existing trucks. So there's a repurposing there too. So in many ways, for me, the big takeaway in terms of summary is that while there are so many interesting solutions available, but how do they sort of connect to the bigger piece or to the puzzle? So it's like a 10,000 word puzzle where 2-3 pieces are getting super clear, but I'm not able to put together the big picture. So for me, I think that should be the focus for next year. So Uwe, Over to you.
Thank you. I will pick up from there. So I think also we've heard there are some words, crucial words here: scale, size, perhaps scale, and also opportunity, which Rainer entered into. But dealing with scale, we have learned from several people here about placing yourself and your business and ideas as part of something bigger, which was the metaphor here is ecosystem, to become a part of the whole ecosystem or the whole value chain. So in connection to scale, that is perhaps, this sounds intriguing, of course, but an ecosystem is a system. If you scale it up, it will be another system. So if we look at a whole ecosystem, scaling up will be problematic because it will be different ecosystem, different problems, different solutions. So context is super important, and scale has a lot to do. Scaling up has a lot to do with changing context and moving out from different. So looking at the whole ecosystem would be plural, or super plural, or even meta plural, or whatever plural. It has to do with a lot of things, so it's super complex. And to come back to my opening here, I think that maybe then if I can't grasp it, if we can't grasp this complexity, we have the data. If we have enough data, we can get the help with AI to grasp some things of this complexity, which we heard from several of the presenters. This idea that AI can actually help us to grasp super complex issues and get us closer to where we want. But scale is a very big problem. Another problem is, of course, another thing is with AI. What can AI do for us? We have heard about monitoring, like in Traced. We have like maintenance, like Vattenfall opened with. We have optimizing things like Archive, the case of Archive, optimizing things, processing, initiating, accelerating, like Viral talked about. A lot of things which are good things, of course, that AI can do for us. Only one voice spoke about the other point, other side of it. With every solution, with every utopia, comes something else. Trade-offs, Klaus talked about. So what about cost energy with AI? What about energy costs? And what about if they come up with the wrong answers, as we also heard about? I think what was the word used again? It was, never mind, hallucinations. Yes, hallucinations. What about that? So we need to also stick close to the possible other side of the whole case, of course. And then dare to share, dare to put money on the table, and dare to be different. Diversity is one of those words. So scale, size, opportunity, diversity. AI can maybe be instrumental to us to get this going, to help us here. But also what sustainability we've heard, and this is maybe my last point, we've heard sustainability is about energy, it's about steel, fertilizers, and cement, Daniel Westlin pointed out. And then we heard about soil, and then we heard about water and food and a lot of other things that sustainability could be about. But we know also, we have agreed, the world has agreed that it's also about reducing poverty, raising education. It's about getting people to eat enough. So and not even the least important is the 17th of the 17th universally applied goals here is the collaboration. And I mean, I would think that maybe the one word that goes through all of the presentation is collaboration. That collaboration is necessary because of the complexity of the problem, because of the scope and scale of the problem, and because there is only one planet, and we're all part of that. And I would end like we started, and I started with many of us has come back to the gap between what we know and what we do, what we know what we should do and what we know what we do. We started there as the main problem, but we ended with action. We were left with exciting projects that are active now. So we were left with in a good mood, in a positive mood. The issue is large, possibly a lot larger than than any moon landing, a lot larger, but it is possible to do something. And there we are. So how do we get there where we need to go? And we have some of the answers here, and the problem still remains. Scaling them up becomes yet another problem. So AI, hey, let's ask for some help.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Uwe and Swami. I think a very, very comprehensive and good sum up. And taking from, so this year, of course, we touched upon AI sustainability, climate solution, next-gen innovation, and importantly, what you talked about, collaboration or sambandh. And that's what we are here for. That's what we are going to grow on this platform. So all of you here who have put in your energies, shared your insights, shared your innovation, and are ready to do more, stay in touch with us. We'll be in touch with you. And there's a lot that can come together when we work in Sambandh. So with that, namaste and thank you so much. There's coffee waiting, there's some tea and cake, and see you next year.
Yeah, thank you.